Just haven't seen so few people in a long time. Still waiting for them all to come.
Yeah.
Don't knock it.
No, I know, no. Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the Planning Commission meeting of July 23rd, 2015. Let the record show that all of the commissioners are present today, as well as staff. And at this point, I'd like for you to join with me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Are there any agenda changes?
No.
Okay. Moving ahead is our public comment period. If anyone is in the audience that would like to address the Planning Commission on an item that is not on our agenda this morning, this would be your opportunity.
Good morning. Colleen Platt with MyValleySprings.com and the Calaveras Planning Coalition. Just a comment about, I'd like to clarify something if I may. My understanding is that planning commissioners are appointed to represent their constituents on land use matters and not personal opinions and agendas, but that's just my understanding. Maybe that's not correct. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is I would just ask everybody, the planning commissioners and the public included, to bring to the table open minds on these discussions about the general plan. Listen carefully to everybody, consider everybody's different viewpoint, and with respect for other perspectives. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? So is there a response to? No?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I guess it
I mean, as far as the,
like submittal of personal, I guess,
Well-
opinions, or like we've seen a couple of them on the vision statement and the guiding principles. I guess she's asking, do we have a policy about that, or?
I'm not aware of any policy. I don't know if there's anything in the bylaws of the Planning Commission as far as, what the roles and responsibility. You're appointed by the board member to serve as a commissioner. I think that the standards by which you serve are fairly broad. I don't think it states anywhere in our code and the bylaws what your specific responsibility is, other than to serve as a decision-making body in some cases, an advisory body in others to the board. But how you do that is not specified as far as I know. I think that it's your role is to look at consistency with laws of the state, of the county, and good sound planning principles and what you believe to be in the best interest of the county, and to adequately apply the rules, accurately apply the rules when you're serving as a quasi-judicial body. So in case of a conditional use permit or tentative map, it's your job to, in a sense, serve as judge using the rules that are in place at the time. But you also apply your judgment, as we've discussed in previous weeks. When it comes to legislative acts, you serve as an advisory body to the board, and I think that you have full discretion to consider all points of view and make what you believe to be the best, what's in the best interest of the county. And that's, I think, your role as a planning commission, to provide that advice to the board.
Okay. And I'm guessing that Colleen's comment has to do specifically with the submittals that on the guiding principles and vision, and I would No, but I would guess even on those submittals that they are reflective of people and constituents that have conferred with the commissioners, and hopefully that they are representative of people that they've talked to, and not just their own personal agenda. Okay, moving on is the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the July 9th, 2015 Planning Commission meeting. I had 2 small edits that I gave to Annette earlier, not substantive, just identifying the commissioner who made the comment. Is there any other revisions?
I had like 3 typos.
Okay,
She has them.
okay.
Just one that I believe on the first bullet point, I believe Mr. Preston spells his name with an O.
Correct. Okay, with those revisions, is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
It's been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next item is the public hearing having to do with Planning Commission review and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the general plan update. And our topics of discussion this morning are the vision statement and guiding principles, and then a discussion of objectives, implementation measures, and then the noise element, in that order. So is there a staff presentation?
Just briefly, again, this is a continued hearing from the prior meeting. We introduced the idea of the discussion of the vision statement last week. There were several different versions that have been circulated. I see that we received another one this morning from Commissioner Tuno. You also received a number of emails from members of the public regarding the vision statements over the last couple of days. So at this point, I think it's, we just sort of open up for discussion. I think maybe the best thing would be if there's general issues or questions that you want to discuss first among ourselves, and we open it up for public comment, and then we get into the formal editing and direction which we would go. I'm thinking that it would be good once we have come up with once you have come up with a final draft, that I take this to the board soon, not wait till the end of the whole review process, just so that there is clear agreement by the board or changes that they may wish to make. And because it's going to set the parameter for the rest of the discussion. So once this is resolved, then I'll be scheduling this for the board. But I won't be doing that sort of periodically throughout the process. Just on that, I think this vision statement is a very important part of setting the framework for the plan.
What is it that we decide today? Are we able to decide in the form of a resolution, or do we just decide that our intent is to adopt one version or another, or we we end up coming out at the end of the day with some edits, and we say this is what we agree to, or we have a consensus on this version? Then does it get formalized, or do you just go ahead and write that up and pass it on to the board?
That's a good question. I had intended that we would adopt this by resolution. It would be a formal action and recommendation by the commission to the board. Perhaps Julie can help a little bit with the technicalities on procedurally.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, how can we, what's the most efficient way to get this done, rather than have it, if it doesn't need to be a formal resolution, but we end up with a consensus on something today, then then can that conclude our business vis-à-vis the vision statement, it gets passed on to the board.
Yes.
I think so.
And that way, we don't have to wait for another agenda item down the road.
No, I hope that we can finish the vision statement today. There'll be, I don't know, can they vote on it?
I mean, I don't see a problem with voting on a recommendation for a vision statement insofar as my understanding is the vision statement does not need to itself be consistent with other elements of the general plan. So voting on a portion of the general plan that can stand by itself, to me, it's still just voting on a recommendation to the board. So I would think they can. That would be my
Okay,
sense.
yeah.
Okay.
As we go through this, I'm just trying to think of make sure that procedurally we move forward in a proper way. There will be times when you all won't agree on how the policy language, should read. I don't know if, now my past experience in other jurisdictions is that the commission will vote on individual, someone will make a recommendation, I move that we amend this policy to read X, Y, Z. And someone will second that and there'll be a vote. And it might be 3-2, 4-1, 5-0, whatever the vote may be. And that is sort of the record of the Planning Commission's action. I'm learning that we do things a little differently here than I'm used to. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it's just different. And that when there is an actual vote by the commission, that vote needs to be agendized and advertised. And maybe I just need to discuss this more closely with Julie, is how we can sort of get through this process without, we won't really know what it is until we hear from the public. We have our discussion here as to what changes you want to make to the draft plan. And the biggest challenge that I have when there's not a very clear, majority of the commission wants this, is to try to discern from conversation what it is that's really desired by the commission.
That is, if specific language isn't decided upon, but more direction, then it throws it back in your court, and you have to say, okay, this is my interpretation of what the board desires, and then it has to come back again, do we all agree with your version of it? Mm-hmm. Whereas, if we went through an actual editing process, and assuming that's possible, then that becomes the language, and we're done with that piece.
That's what I would hope we'd be able to accomplish, is that if there's clear language that the commission wants to see in the draft document, you tell me what it is, you agree to that, and we move on to the next policy, we move on to the next issue. There may be some times when we'll need to do some more research. And you'll have some ideas that direct me to come back with some modifications to the policies. And we'll bring those back at the next meeting.
Now, you're looking ahead to some of the heavier elements.
Right.
I mean, I think that if the Planning Commission had a general sense of what it wanted in the vision statement, but was unable or didn't want to go through the exercise of drafting exact language, the other option would be for Mr. Maurer to summarize the general direction given by the Planning Commission and let the Board of Supervisors draft the
Oh, I
vision statement.
see.
So that's another option, depending on...
A vision statement of a vision statement, okay.
Well, I mean, that's another option depending on the level of consensus.
Okay.
That's sort of just kicking it back at them.
So-
They kicked it to us, we kick it to them. They kick it to us, we kick it to them.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
I'm
any-
hoping for fewer back and forths, because otherwise we're going to be here until the next millennium.
Right, right.
So I don't know if it's possible to do, on some issues, if there's some, not real clear consensus. If there's consensus, we all agree, yeah, that's good language, I can write it down, we're done, that's fine. If there's some disagreement, then we may need to take a straw vote or something like that to say, well, how many agree, is this, the majority of the commission agree with this language? And if that's the case, then we'll move it forward from there. So that's sort of what I hope that we can accomplish.
Okay, but
as
at
we
least
move
with
forward.
respect to the vision statement, we ought to be able to nail down something today that we can pass on.
Yes, that's my hope.
And maybe even the noise ordinance
If we can, well, not the noise ordinance, but the noise element.
element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we can get through the noise element today, that'd be great.
We've actually got 3 items.
Yeah, we have the noise element, we have discussion of objectives and implementation measures, and then the noise element.
Yeah, if we can't get through the noise element today, that doesn't bode well for all of the other heavy elements.
Yes. So, with that, are there any further discussion among the commission on the various drafts? Is there, before we open up the public? There has been some discussion already on the implementation measures, or on the, I'm sorry, on the vision statement.
Other than I would tell the public that there's, as you mentioned, a version that I came up with, adding to the other versions, and it's out there on the table if you happen to miss it.
On the table outside,
On the entry
in the foyer?
table.
Are the other public comments that you received from the commission out there too?
I think probably just yours, the new one. We just received that this morning,
Just
too.
so that if you wanted to incorporate it into your public comments,
It'd be helpful also to know what the other public comments that have been submitted in the last few days.
no, there hasn't.
Well, we got emails. from-
Emails,
yeah.
I can't even.
But I don't think we have copies of those, of the emails.
I didn't make copies for the public.
Is there any way you could summarize them or give us an idea?
My recollection is I think there were maybe 2 or 3 of them, and 3?
At the most.
2, and they were both supportive of the original working draft, vision and guiding principles, and I think the other one referenced the Planning Coalition's version, which was based on the working draft. Is that correct?
We actually received a total of 7 emails the last 2 days.
Oh.
And that all of them were forwarded to you as well.
Say again?
We received 7 emails and they were forwarded to you, either yesterday or the day before.
Gee, I don't recall getting 7. I think it's,
I think it was
2 or 3 of them.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay, well, with that.
Well, we got Tom's, too.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I was curious, does every planning commissioner know that they have a planning commission email address here?
Yes.
Okay, and you check that, because that's where we've been, that's where the public sends.
it gets forwarded.
It gets forwarded to your personal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I was wondering if there's any slip up there, because it sounds like they're not getting they didn't get all 7 somehow.
I checked my county email, and there were 2.
There were 2. I got 2 replies to my
Submitted
email.
to the county website.
Yeah, yeah, I just want to, I submitted mine, I had a request at the top, please reply if you received, and Commissioner Tuno replied, and Commissioner McLaughlin replied.
I did not get it.
You did not get, did you get it? So what's going on?
I don't know if this is the problem, but I've had a few occasions, and I've been to the tech department to discuss this, where an email, I would get a notice about a rejection, something about the email the server in the county didn't like. And they don't know what it is, it's just some kind of a rejection, it gets flagged. And then you have to go to them and find out how, what was wrong with this email.
The other question I had was because when Director Maurer started here, I had a heck of a time getting his emails, receiving his emails, because they kept being read as spam because they come from a large institution. And we finally figured that out. We finally got him off of my spam list and onto my good list. I'm wondering if some of these are being filtered out as spam. Because I got no notice from my server that any of them were rejected yesterday.
Because yours is going straight to the county, so you wouldn't get that notice. It's not going to tell you that it did or did not get to me.
Yeah, let's take about
This is kind of important because we're on a kind of a fast schedule here, this, weekly kind of review of the general plan. And if people can't get their emails to you, we're kind of in a bad way here.
So we'll figure out what the situation is, but I think maybe we'll take a 5-minute recess and just get copies.
That sounds like a
Let me
good
offer another suggestion. The speed with which it goes from the county server to Lisa, for example, is different than the speed that it goes from the county server to me, because it's going through a different email account. Whoever her host provider is, whoever my host provider is, works at different speeds. So I got yours at, what, 6:30 or 7? Or
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know when it came in, but I got it shortly after it came in, within an hour. I think I remember reading it at about 7 o'clock. But I don't know what time you actually sent it.
I want to ask Commissioner Wooster a question. After, last time we met, we had a meeting about this, I asked, you had said that you hadn't gotten the email. So I resent the email. Did you get last week's email?
No.
So he didn't get last week's either. So there's something seriously wrong here.
So I talked to the tech support too, because I get a lot of my emails that are they're saying they're not deliverable. There's something, they said that the words that are used are very sensitive on the filter for the county. So anything with profanity automatically is going to be rejected. I'm not saying that you're using profanity.
I can assure you that
But
Mr.
my
Tuno can
point
assure you
is,
there was no profanity in
If
that
the
thing when
filter
I
is
sent.
picking up something that it is seeing in the words in the emails, it's blocking them from us. I've gotten several that have been blocked. You have to actually call tech support to have them unblock them, because I can't open them on the county email. But Annette usually takes all of those comments and sends them to our personal emails, and that's what I received on top of the duplicates at the county I got, and then I also got my email from Annette, because she takes them all, puts them into one email and sends them to us.
So,
When you're
Let-
sending an email, do you, I know you've all been sending them to PlanCom 1 through PlanCom 5. Do you also send it to the Planning Commission page?
I sent it to Director Maurer.
Okay, can I ask that you also send it to the Planning Commission web page?
Now, which is that?
Because I won't get it if you're sending it to them directly.
So which is that?
You have to go online and submit it online.
Yeah.
Okay, that gets hard.
Attachments and-
It gets really hard to add attachments, and also the formatting disappears when you cut and paste. So you have to then go reback
I
and
can get that
reformat it.
email to you. But
What-
that way it'll ensure that,
What they have on the website, when you go on the county website, there's a
form.
page that says, and it gives you a place.
I know, it's a copy and paste affair.
Yeah, and when you copy and paste, your formatting disappears.
but if you, there's
So-
actually another link besides that page where it just says email Planning Commission.
Okay.
Or email Planning Department.
If you can send, if you can post that,
Yeah, I did that even.
What happens in those situations is we end up getting them twice,
yeah.
but that's okay.
I know this is a big imposition to ask you this, and
No.
maybe you don't want to do it,
Absolutely not.
but my would it be, I mean, since you do have personal email addresses, and that would likely get you directly rather than, and I don't mean to say that there's a serious problem, but there's obviously a complication that we're not able to penetrate today. Would it be possible for you to offer your personal personal email addresses so that we could get directly to you? I mean, you don't have to. I mean, do you want to make that public now, or do you want to?
That's fine.
Oh.
You want me to read it?
I was thinking.
Okay, so the one that I'm using for the Planning Commission is Lisa M. PC3@gmail.com.
Lisa M. PC3@gmail.com.
Yep.
Okay, that's
I've always
one.
preferred that mine come to my personal address, just because it's a lot less complicated.
And I tried to send it to your
Dealing with
personal
the county.
address, and I don't know what happened to it. Maybe I have an old address. What's your current address?
No, mine hasn't changed in years and years.
Okay. Well, I sent it to
I
your.
just recently had a problem with
Now,
it.
I will also send it to the PlanCom one so that the county gets a copy of it for its official record. But it seems to me like
Just one other thing too, just, I think Ted has got an older version of Word. So
Oh.
it
I'm-
needs to be compatibility mode, not with the X behind it for a document.
Right, I used the 93
Yeah.
to 2003
Okay.
version. Is that the one you're on?
You can say that as anything you want.
Yeah, no, but when I send out the doc, I send it out as a doc.
Yeah,
with-
yes,
yeah,
not the
okay.
dot X.
Well, this
and-
is very helpful.
Yeah, and.
It would be
and-
better if you sent them out as PDF files, because then it's compatible
Everybody
with
gets it,
everybody.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
that's a
save
good
it
That would be the
idea.
best format, then it isn't gonna matter what platform they're using.
Right.
Okay. But those are harder than to edit for some people.
Well,
We're not
not editing,
stuff
you're-
edited.
we're not editing people's public
You do it in a
comments.
Word doc,
Yeah.
and then you do save as PDF,
Mm-hmm.
and you only send us the PDF. You keep your Word doc for
Right.
editing purposes.
Well, yeah, but we would like, I mean, we would like to think, we'd like to make it as easy as possible for Peter to incorporate our comments if he wants to. So we could do, we'd send Peter both copies.
That's right. You
Yeah,
could send him
Peter
the Word
both.
doc as
Okay,
well.
Gotcha. Okay, so we got that. So I have KCW, that's you.
KCW.
And then, do you want me to read it into the record and for the people at home, or?
Doesn't matter to me.
KCW@caltel.com and David@tunno.com. And then we already got yours. And Ted's is the one that, could you just read yours in?
My problem
Oh.
with the DOCX has been solved.
Yeah, but I mean, could you read your email in so that people at home?
But it just works out better to come directly to my private one and not to the
Yeah,
county.
which is,
tallard@goldrush.com.
okay. And Fawn,
FJ McLaughlin at Comcast.net.
thank you very much. Appreciate your cooperation. Go back to your meeting.
Could I just clarify one thing that Annette said? I think I heard that the official PlanCom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at CalVERS go to you guys, but they do not go to Annette and the planning department. They only go to you guys, right? So if people are sending to you guys, it does not go to the planning department unless you do the PlanCom at county contacts. Okay. PlanCom, just PLANCOM at county contacts.
There's been so many that we've had to take out. Let me double check.
Okay.
So we're in a recess, waiting for Mr. Maurer to make copies so that make sure have all of the public's comments on our agenda items today. So you can talk amongst yourselves.
Email that Annette hasn't duplicated and sent back to me. It's always duplicate when you send it.
But some people have sent things to you and not sent things to her, so they're not aware that you go.
Okay. No, I know. And then he was, yeah, he mentioned.
I'm sorry, Peter, I would have gone in. You should have just given it to me.
Why am I looking at several copies of the same thing?
Go ahead, the computer that I'm through, see now.
So I gotta tell you, like, I don't.
Getting the emails, and that'll be the first thing I do after the meeting is to work with tech services to find out what's going wrong.
Good,
Fix it.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah, we can't.
It's always important, but especially now.
Yeah,
Can we tell on all of these what the route was that they took to try to get to us? Is it evident from,
Yeah, it is.
are sent to two
What's-
different
what's
links.
what's GPUP date?
That is a general plan update link that we have on our website that comes to our department that we look at, and then we forward it from there to you.
Whereas PlanCom, yeah, see, the ones from
So
PlanCom I got.
Okay, so it's the problem then with the county forwarding it onto you, whatever the connection is there, it's not working properly.
From that other link,
Yeah,
yeah.
You do?
I don't.
Oh.
Okay.
That's the ones I'm not getting, is the ones going here when I'm looking at this.
Okay. So all the ones that went to GP update, and
Yep.
it might have been just a staff glitch.
Well, if the GPUP link is intended to go to everybody on the commission anyway,
It's not,
No, it's not.
No.
That's communication to staff, to the department. We look at that, and then we say, oh, this is something that's intended for the planning
It's really
commission. We
intended
forward it
for-
on.
okay.
So
So you have to make a
either it
judgment.
didn't get forwarded on properly, or there is a glitch computer-wise, and I'll check that out as to why that didn't happen. But, so it looks like the PlanCom link works. It's internal to our department that either the problem with tech services and our forwarding, or whoever pulled these off didn't
Well,
forward it.
is there a way that you can save yourself some time so that you don't have to make judgments about, read all these, have somebody do that? Is there a way that you can just tell the writer, the sender, if you also want it to go to the planning commission, click here? I don't know.
That's not a bad idea.
So that
We'll make sure
takes
it's
you out of
pretty
that
clear.
loop.
Yeah, if the public wants to communicate directly to you, then they should send it directly to you, and we can make that clear on our website.
So one says to planning staff, one says to commissioners, and
But we would review that, and if it is associated with, these general plan hearings, then we would forward it on anyway, so we're going to continue to do that. But we'll make sure the system works henceforth, because this is taking too much time to, to not have it work properly.
So I guess I'll re-adjourn our meeting, too.
Good.
I just want to, for the sake of county council and the people who are going to someday may have to deal with an administrative record, it's very important that in addition to sending the emails directly to the commissioners, that the county somehow gets a copy of them for their records. So whether it's to Annette, or whether it's to Peter, or whether it's to the GPUD general thing, I'm not sure, but they need to get, somebody official needs to get an official copy. The other thing, I would encourage the members of the commission, when they get home, to check to see if any emails from the county are getting captured by their gray mail. Because if they are, maybe there's a whole bunch of things waiting for you in your gray mail that you didn't realize were getting screened out. So, thank you.
Great. So how would the commission would you like us to talk about amongst ourselves the vision and the guiding principles, or would you prefer to hear from the public first?
I have a quick question for
Sure.
Peter. At the night meeting that we held, you had addressed the vision statement, principles, and objectives. And at that meeting, you talked about objectives maybe not being something that we wanted to take on. And then I look at our staff notes here, and it's not using the word principles at all, it's using the word objectives. You had indicated that objectives could be real restrictive at times. We wouldn't be able to meet deadlines. You talked about how other counties did that at that night meeting.
Yes. So the board, at the June 30th meeting, referred two issues back to this commission, the review of the vision statement, as well as consideration of inclusion of objectives and how we are going to format the implementation measure. The guidelines suggest that you have goals, objectives, policies, and implementation measures. In there somewhere too is principles. I'm not sure the exact, and there's a lot of different ways that you can organize, that we as a county can organize our general plan.
Okay, so
I did some review of other counties. Some use objectives, some don't. My experience, as I described in the staff report, is that they're usually more of just a restatement of either the goal or policy. And often the objective statement is really a policy statement that in my recommendation is that if there is a specific objective that we're trying to accomplish, that be placed in the implementation measure itself. And I think was some of what Mr. Infacino touched on in his letter that was sent out late yesterday. There's any number of ways that we can organize and craft our general plan as long as it meets the requirements of state law.
Okay, so the documents before us today that we're looking at with different people submitted are all principles. But yet everything in the report talks about objectives, so,
Well, there's two different sections here. There's the vision statement and guiding principles,
right?
sort of combined. I'll call it the vision statement.
Okay.
The objectives and implementation measures, sort of the next part of the discussion, and that is more of as the organization of the document itself.
So we're not.
Right now, what I have recommended in the draft is that we have goals, we have policies, and we have implementation measures. Some counties include objective statements in there, different from principles.
Well, I'm in total agreement that an objective is a goal, and you have goal statements, and why another section that restates them in some way? If an objective was important to include, it ought to be in the goal statement.
Now, the housing element is required to have measurable objectives. So this policy, this implementation measure is intended to provide X number of
Right.
affordable housing units.
But the rest of the plan doesn't have that requirement.
Right.
And so the rest of the general plan is intended to be a general plan, whereas the housing element has its own set of rules for whatever reasons the state has set up. And I think it would be a mistake to import those requirements on all the other elements.
And I agree.
So we're
Did
not.
that answer your question, Lisa? You still look like you're...
Well, I guess my specific question is, we're not creating objectives today. We're just working on the vision statement and principles. Is that correct?
Well, if it's the intent of the commission to add objectives into the various goal policy sections of each element, then that's something that I would need to work on as we bring forward the noise element, the land use element. We don't have those in there now.
Okay.
So that'd be something I would need to work on.
You answered
The
that.
first thing that we're going to need to adjust, though, is get back to the vision statement and the guiding principles.
And then we'll get on
And then we'll
to
move
the-
on to the next one, so.
To the discussion, which is more of a framework. Do we want objectives in our,
Right.
in our general plan update?
Okay, I'm good.
So back to the question, would the commission like to have a discussion prior to public comments, or?
I'd like to hear the public.
Okay, all right.
Public.
So with that, I would like to invite members of the public to come up and talk about our issues
I
before us.
want to object
this
to what
morning.
you're just doing now. How can the public interact if they have no insight into what the commissioners are thinking? It's not a productive system to work from. So I'm Joyce Teckle.
Okay, Joyce, thank you.
Can I
Sure.
address that? So when you make that comment, you just got through saying to us, we need to hear you before we make our final determinations. So what we would like to do is hear from you, then I'm sure that we'll give you, because the public feedback does make a difference.
All right, I realize this isn't a public hearing, an official public hearing, but I was not aware that we would have multiple opportunities to interact once we hear what you have to offer, too. It's a two-way conversation.
Absolutely.
So
And
if
we-
I could offer then, if the commission concurs, that if we could hear your initial comments, we'll have a discussion amongst ourselves, and then we'll offer the public another opportunity.
Perfect.
To come up.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. So do you have any initial comments, Joyce? Before you sit
How
back
far
down?
back and how deep do you want to go?
Let's focus on the vision, in the guiding principles right now.
I would hate to see the vision statement thrown out. I personally attended 6 of the community meetings. I was not a participant. I wanted to familiarize myself with what the citizens wanted, and I wanted more than just my town's input. We all feel the same. There was very little difference. That vision statement factually reflects what the people at those meetings spoke about. And the one up in D2 was a huge hall full. Up in Arnold, there were 30 or so people. I mean, I went all over the place. And we know what happened in Rancho. We're all crazy down there. The hall was full and everybody felt the same. So I don't want to see the vision thrown out. I think I can accept some adjustments to it. But if we throw that vision statement out, you're throwing the people out. That's it. That's what I feel. Sorry, I've been reading way too many documents the last few days.
Thank you, Joyce.
Morning, Marty Crane, Rancho Calaveras. I'm just going to read what I wrote. Dear Planning Commissioners, after attending all but one of the Valley Springs Community Planning meetings, several other community meetings across the county, and participating in our general plan meetings, I believe that the people have spoken well, have had spirited discussions, and reached consensus, beginning with their vision for Calaveras County. I was one of over 800 others who worked to craft the 2008 General Plan Vision Statement, which is now under review for reconsideration today. In the spirit of inclusiveness and consensus, I fully support the vision draft proposed by the Calaveras Planning Coalition because it retains the wishes of the people as expressed over the years of planning meetings and as were presented during a recent public meeting. I support this draft because it also supports property rights and lays the groundwork and provides opportunities for economic growth while protecting the very natural resources that make Calaveras County unique and special. Because of the constant changes to staff and leadership, our planning process has suffered many years of delays and restarts. Sadly, the voices of the people get put on the shelf, forgotten, and ultimately carry little weight instead of being folded into the greater work. The voices of the people come in many forms, some written, some loud in volume, and some just a whisper. Please understand that you hold the public trust in your hands. Your role as representatives of those very people provides you with a unique opportunity to heal that trust and ensure that all voices carry the same weight. Please support the General Plan Vision Draft Compromise as presented by the Calaveras Planning Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Vicki Ranke, Calaveras County Republicans. And I think it's true, you need to listen to all voices. I believe that we represent a conservative view in the county. And that view, as far as I can see in written documents, was not in them. So I don't know how the public forums were done, but I've sat in many, many committees over the years where the process was directed so the outcome came to how they wanted the outcome. And that's a real concern. And because I talk to people who believe in less government, believe in freedom of, our rights and all those things, that there's great concern about how this general plan is written. And I'm wondering if that's why it has never been approved, because there is conflict out there. I think Commissioner Wooster last meeting said it so well. And I think we have to listen to what he had to say. He represents, I know, a lot of the local ranchers and busy people. They work hard. They don't have time to come here, and they don't have time to come to meetings and sit in the process and, try to come up with these visions and, that's just not in their nature. But they are good people who have built this county. And so anyway, that's who we believe we represent when we come forward into these meetings. And so I suggest that, yes, there are other voices, and you should listen to them all. We very much supported what Commissioner Wooster wrote as a vision and principles. I've read David Tuno's. It incorporates everything. It gives a little more detail. And truthfully, I don't know anything in Commissioner Tuno's vision statement that wouldn't be good for all of the county. It's just written differently, and it's written so that the people are not being told what to do and how to do it. That's not how this country works. We've talked about how it's private enterprise. It's people who come here to make something good. We don't force that on us. It happens. It's what free markets do. And when you have a general plan that starts telling people how they're going to do their property, what they're going to do here, and that we think we're going to tell people, come here and do this, no. And sadly, this county has just chased about everybody out of it. So this general plan is important, but it's important to welcome people, not tell them, oh, well, if you come here, you're going to have to do all these things, so why bother? So anyway, I just want to say that we would agree with the draft vision that David Tuno has put together, because it is written in language that we agree to, and that is a language that is more general, more open, leaving it to the good people to do the right thing, because we believe people are smart, that they can do good things on their own without being told every step of the way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen Platt again with My Valley Springs and the Calaveras Planning Coalition. I wish we would have had more time to look at your draft, David. I don't think fast, so I can't address your draft because we haven't had enough time to look at it. So I just wish we would have had more time, because just glancing through it, it looks like it has some things that would be acceptable and some things we'd have a problem with, but we haven't had time to look at it. That's just, I'm just wishing that would have been released to the public sooner. Anyway, an aside, I still don't think you're getting all the emails, because I was just forwarded this morning another email that was sent to all of you, according to the forward, and it was from somebody, and their initials were GG, and I think it was a Greta or something, Gotti in District 2. Did you happen to get her email? No, okay, because we got it this morning as an example of an email that was sent, and they commented on the Calaveras Planning Coalition revisions, and this person actually came from a property rights free market perspective, and they were saying, well, I would like something a little simpler, but as a compromise, we think that could work with some revisions. So they, again, sent that with some suggested revisions to the revisions from a property rights free market perspective, and I thought they were very good suggestions, but you didn't get that. The things I had made a note of that she suggested was, instead of the general plan will be sensitive to property rights, she wanted to put in will be instrumental in seeking to respect and protect property rights. Just some stronger language there. She also added private sector under economic development and businesses. She added tourists instead of visitors from around the world. She liked the word tourist. She added a whole bullet point under economic development that actually we're not 100% happy with, but we could work with. She said the general plan will or shall be instrumental in seeking to avoid imposing unnecessary regulations that may hinder the efforts of those in the private sector or private individuals and create economic growth. And we could work with that. She used the word inflexible in there, which she added that which we have a problem with, inflexible. Avoiding imposing inflexible regulations. Our interpretation of regulations is that they are rules designed to govern conduct. And it's okay to avoid unnecessary rules, that's fine. But to avoid inflexible rules, I found that was, we're having a hard time with that. We believe the general plan and zoning code need to be specific and consistent in order to give clear and predictable guidelines for people. Too much flexibility can lead to conflicts, inconsistencies in interpretation and regulation, and it could, flexibility can actually lead to favoritism for a few preferred people, which we don't think that's the direction we should be going. So anyway, her other suggestions were to add senior centers under community development, and under conservation and open space, she wanted to add wildlife. And I'm sorry you didn't get a copy of this, because we thought this was a pretty good compromise, again, a compromise to a compromise.
Colleen, can you see where she emailed that to on your document?
I didn't, I'm trying to save paper, so I didn't print out her whole email. I wrote her suggestions onto the principles here that had already been edited, so I added hers. I will forward that to you, her email. So anyway, we do support the compromised CPC version of the 2008 with further compromises. I mean, we just think that's the best direction to go to represent the people's input and all that. And we do appreciate the other commissioners' input, but we'd rather kind of stay on that one path than go sideways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lou Mayhew. I'm speaking for Keep It Rural Calaveras. There's a background perspective that seems to think that property rights are under attack in some way. And by a vision statement that includes the best desires for a community to protect its resources, to channel growth in ways that facilitate the human condition in the county, and speak for what the people want. I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, I think that probably protects property rights. I suspect that the communities that do that in a reasonable way, that plan to enhance the things that will enhance human life, probably retain the greatest value by using reasonable restrictions. So if you want to look where property values are the greatest and endure, I don't think you look where there are the fewest restrictions.
Could I ask that you speak a little closer to
I don't think you go, you look at where the marketplace drives the decisions. I think that kind of leads to chaos, difficulties with transportation, conflicts between land uses and so forth. Now that doesn't mean that your vision and your guidelines and your general plan has to be restrictive or too restrictive. But I think what you're doing is laying down a template into which the financial and human resources are going to pour. And I think it's reasonable to try and channel those in certain directions. And realizing while you're doing that, it's not absolute. So that if some of the restrictions on land use or the vision prove to be, or somebody comes in and wants to do something with their land that the land use designations and zoning doesn't permit, it's not prohibited. It just means you go through an additional layer of review, which is appropriate. That again protects the greater interest of the community, which I think you simply cannot ignore by defaulting to a position that says the individual property owner has a right to do what they want, or what I think you're trying to do in a sense is move more in that direction. So what you're talking about is trying to relax what restrictions exist to channel development and energy and financial resources into positive ways. You want, or some of you, Mr. Tuno perhaps is the greatest advocate for that, is more freedom to act without any kind of restriction. And again, I don't think that action is prohibited, but to make it easier leads to communities that don't work without sufficient resources to function. And anyway, it's a direction that I hope that when you start wordsmithing these documents, that the document you come up with will be consistent with that original document that was developed out of the communities. Because I think that's broad. Now, certainly add property rights into that. Wordsmith it for clarity, but do not throw out the better vision, the better angel spoke, I think, of what people said this county can be. So I don't know how you're going to do it. It's a tough challenge to sit here and wordsmith, but I think, please keep in mind, people are trying to portray a vision that is functioning and really appeals to the to what a human society county can be, rather than just laissez-faire capitalism. That can get you someplace, but it also has limits. So you're really talking about the limits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Infacino, Calaveras Planning Coalition. I said most of what I wanted to say last time, so I won't repeat that. But there are a couple new things that have come to my attention I just want to note. Thank you, Peter, for copying the 9 emails. If you review them, you'll see that the commenters felt a strong affinity for the original 2008 vision statement, and some expressed an affinity for the amendments that we made at the Calaveras Planning Coalition to include property rights. The other item that's new is Commissioner Tuno's draft, and I want to thank him for providing that. As I'm in the same position Colleen's in, it's kind of hard to make quick review of these, but I would like to say that I thought the paragraph, bullet point 2 there on property rights is a good analysis. I would add the word "to" between "not" and "deprive," and I would add the words implementation programs after policies.
Oh, could you slow down a little
Sure.
bit? You got a couple edits there.
Yeah.
Tell me again, please.
Property or property, and the general plan and its elements should be construed so as not to deprive any landowner. And then of any vested right to develop his or her property. And then the next line, the County Board of Supervisors will amend as necessary any of the policies or implementation programs. Because to be honest with you, that's where the pedal's going to hit the metal. I could get into a big legal analysis about that, but I'd rather not do that now, unless anybody's really interested. Also, as we're going through the bullet points, I thought your statement about community development, bullet point 4, was very well stated. The infrastructure and services bullet points looks extraordinarily familiar to Supervisor Wooster, Commissioner Wooster's, so which we had acknowledged as acceptable at the last meeting. So just so you know, that those 3 bullet points, I thought you made a good effort at. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just trying to take notes. What was the last bullet point, Mr. Infacino, that you thought was good?
The community development.
4 and 5?
Bullet point 5.
Okay, thanks.
Was the infrastructure and services, which basically came out of Commissioner
Just
Wooster's
to get
draft
the
last
notes.
time, which last time we said was okay. Those provisions were okay. So maybe I'm re-chewing the meat again, but that's, anyway.
Okay. Hearing no one else, then I will bring it back for the commission for discussion. I would recommend that we discuss the vision statement and see if we can't find some consensus there and then move on to the guiding principles, if you guys agree.
Well, what David Tunu has done, I think, is the vision statement and guiding principles, not broken into two parts.
And
Yeah, I'm having a hard time distinguishing between those two as well. I mean, what's vision statement, guiding principles, is / guiding principles?
well, the vision statement is an overall statement regarding the county's, the people's future vision. I mean, and it was hard-worked and established by many hundreds of people. Sort of an umbrella statement that describes a future state.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
It describes an overall vision for the future state, what we see this county developing in the next 20 years. It's not specific to economic development or community development or any of these other sort of guiding principle areas. It's one broad statement that says, this is what we want to look like. This is what we're going to be striving for.
See, I don't think you can formulate a paragraph that does that. I think breaking it down into some components, and I've given some, and that are, I kind of robbed Tom's structure somewhat. And I think that's the way to incorporate that's the way to structure a vision statement / guiding principles, because it's really the same thing. I don't think you can make a single statement or paragraph that wraps it all up. It would be fluff. It would be a statement like, we all want people in Calaveras County to be happy for the next 30 years, like to live here. I mean, it just becomes a fluff statement. If you try to make one statement that is a guiding light.
There are hundreds of people that disagree with you that came up with, it's a sentence. The historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources, and the distinction of its physical beauty will continue to create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable and memorable experience for visitors to the county.
And aren't those concepts incorporated into, I mean, I try to incorporate those concepts into
The guiding
what I
principles.
wrote, and others have done the same thing.
Exactly right. The guiding principles fall under the vision in more specificity.
So a vision statement is then followed by guiding principles that correspond to the vision statement?
The
That's
vision
correct.
statement, yeah, that correspond to it's like a hierarchy. Then you have your guiding principles, then you have your goals, then you have your policies, and then you have your implementation measures. Everyone should be supportive. It gets to a more level of specificity. The vision statement is the umbrella with all of the other corresponding, more specific aspects of the general plan adhering to the vision statement.
I got no problem with that.
Other commissioners?
Well, I'm still trying to get my mind around this. I took what Commissioner Tunu did to be a vision statement. It is more detailed than the single line that was in the original vision statement or the single line that was in the draft that I presented. but it's still a vision statement. And I'm not understanding that you have to have guiding principles. If there's some state rule that says you have to have guiding principles, then so be it. But I don't think I've heard that yet.
You know, this is one of those word problems that I have with the whole process. The guiding principles are the bullet points, and I favored the bullet points because I think they're more instructive, whereas the vision statement, this one sentence, is fine. I'm saying I don't have a problem with it. I don't think it has a lot of meaning. The vision statement is intended to be in the guiding principles of this document. My understanding is that's something that you look at when you're dealing with the elements, all the components of the elements, to say, are we being consistent with our vision statement, our guiding principles of the vision statement?
That's correct.
They have weight, whereas the vision statement in this first sentence is a nice statement, but it's not something that you would necessarily rely upon as guidance for consistency through the elements of the general plan.
I would say that's absolutely correct. The vision statement is just that. It's a vision. It's a very broad view of what we hope the county will be in the future. And the guiding principles lead us to that.
Right.
The goals then are formed through those principles, as you say, and as Commissioner McLaughlin stated, that you sort of work down from there. That we're always shooting for this vision. What is it we want to see in our county? And then those principles help refine that. Do we have to have a vision statement? No. Does it help? Probably. Most corporations have a corporate vision statement. Many counties, in their general plans have a vision statement. The guidelines suggest that a vision statement be prepared. The county worked on one many years ago. So I think there's benefit to having that. Is it fluff? I wouldn't say it's fluff, but is it very amorphous? Yes.
Okay.
Here's what we're trying to attain is, this county, and maybe there needs to be something else in it that helps refine it to what you believe is the larger picture. But I think that as individual statement is important to have to help. Okay, what are the guiding principles trying to get us to?
Joyce, we're going to have more public comment later.
I just want to say it sets a tone. That's all.
The other thing about the guiding principles is that they're really important because the goals may change. The strategies may change. The implementations may change. They may change based on new economic conditions, situations that may arise. But any goal that is added in place of one or amended or revised will be tested against the guiding principles. Does it still make sense, and is it holding true to our vision? That's why they're so important.
Well, I don't have a problem with the vision statement. To me, it doesn't carry a lot of weight. It's not something around which everything is built. You can't build an entire general plan around a sentence.
That's why we have the guiding principles, the goals, the policies, the implementation measures.
Okay, but a lot of these bullet points are duplicated in the actual elements. I mean, the element will have a statement at the beginning of it. This is what you intended to do with this element. It just becomes duplicative, where these aren't
When you say these, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at the original,
Okay.
I'm looking at number 1 from our last, our item number 1. The original one.
Okay.
Okay. These are not so much guiding principles as they are specific goals. I think I don't think you can take a vision statement. I think guiding principles need to be broader than that. And that's what I've tried to come up with, which was kind of a reworking of what Mr. Wooster came up with. It incorporates a little bit of what CPC did. It incorporates a little bit of what Ms. Reinke offered, and I can't remember what else. But this, I think, gives you more guidance. If you want guiding principles, these are guiding principles, not specific points to be made. I think this adheres more to the concept of guiding principles. The detail is going to be, prevalent in the elements, and each one of those has statements that give it guidance, and goal statements. There's where your detail is, but this is, to me, more of a standalone document that gives you actual guidance. You could, if you want to go bullet points like this, you could have 200 of them.
Yes, but I think the point is that we have, however many we have, that were developed by many hundreds of people back in 2008 that said, these are the guiding principles that we find important, and that reflects our wishes.
I can comment on that too, because the process has everything to do with the validity of the outcome. That'll take a little while, but I can do it right now, because this has been my career, is doing social science research, and doing it in a way where the science was extremely important.
So are you going to describe the process that was taken to develop the guiding principles and the vision? Is that what
Yes. If in fact, yes. What Minter Harnisch came up with, that is what CPC's version of it is based upon, yes, I would have a definite problem with that process. And I can describe it in fairly brief terms.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Because I think if you're trying to debunk the validity of the hundreds and potentially thousands of people that came up with this vision and guiding principles, not Minter Harnisch, they were the hired staff of the county that was guiding this. If that's your intention, I think it would be important for us to hear that.
Okay, I will. As background, I mentioned that I've been in the social science research field for, 26 years. The science that I employed was in the litigation field, trial consulting. In that field, the science has to be perfect. There are hundreds of millions of dollars at stake on any one case, and in some of my cases, billions of dollars. So to get opinions of people that guide attorneys, like Mr. Wooster, when he was a trial attorney, it has to be perfect. And here's where you start. You start with the sampling process. You want to get people's opinion of issues in a case. The sampling process is where it starts. It's where all social science research starts. The sampling process has to be a cross-section of the population of interest, and it has to be by random. If you pull a bunch of people, if you invite a bunch of people to a meeting and say, what's your opinion on this? It is not valid. Start right there. You can throw out the results. That is not a random sample. It is not a cross-section of the community. Ms. Reinke properly mentioned that a lot of people in the county don't have time to go to meetings, or for whatever reason, don't go to meetings. They don't like to go to meetings. It doesn't mean their opinions are invalid. There's a lot of people that aren't here right now. There's a lot of people that haven't been to any meetings, but their opinions are still valid. So if you don't do your science with a proper cross-section and do it by random, you do not have valid results. Secondly, the way that a meeting is conducted, the way that questions are asked makes a big difference. Even assuming you had a random sample and a cross-section, if you don't ask questions in a scientific fashion, you do not have valid results. Here's the example. If we had a room full of people, and I asked people, how many here are in favor of preserving wildlife habitat? Everybody's hand's going to go up. If I say, how many people here are for preserving the natural beauty of Calaveras County? Everybody's hand is going to go up. If I ask the same group of people, how many here would be willing to pay triple their property taxes in order to compensate the people who have property considered to be scenic, for them to keep it that way with this compensation? Nobody's hand goes up. It depends on how you ask the question. In fact, the reality is, as Mr. Wooster pointed out a couple weeks ago, they don't all own those pieces of property. Somebody owns them. So what happens to them has more to do with who owns it than the rest of us who like looking at it. And to preserve it as it is, there's a cost. There has to be a cost to that. If you don't put the cost in the question, you don't get a valid answer. I would point to the original Minter Harnish version here, these guiding principles. Mr. Infazino's version of it had to add a component of property rights. So out of all of those hundreds of people that supposedly contributed to these statements, nobody said property rights are important to them? How can that be? It's illogical. Was the question never asked?
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
They're still not here. We still haven't heard from them. Were there any letters? No. Anybody in the audience? No.
I spoke to several of them on the phone.
Yes,
They
we
all
have
posted
heard
on
from
my
them.
Facebook.
I'm just
Yes,
saying, it's hard to incorporate people's views when they don't share them.
It's not so hard after all, because as Ms. Crane pointed out in her comments this morning, voices of the people come in many forms, including elections. And elections are a better indicator of public opinion than town hall meetings, because you get a cross-section of the people, the sampling is there, and people who would otherwise not show up at a meeting get to have their voices heard. And in the last couple of elections, the Board of Supervisors has completely changed. Now, it's been suggested that if we don't adopt the Minter Harnish version or the CPC version of the Minter Harnish version, that we've ignored hundreds of voices. The people that voted in these recent elections voted for people who rejected the path that the county had been on, the no-growth path, the business-unfriendly path. I'll speak for my district. Mr. Kearney specifically ran on a platform of progress, growth, prosperity, property rights, and he won. And
I'm for all of those,
respectfully, he won
I'm for all
over-
of those things too.
Respectfully, he won over Ms. Crane, who represents the CPC model. I believe Mr. Oliveira also ran on that platform. And so we've had a change. The people have voted. In the last 10 years since this process began, or longer than that, the people have realized that the county was going in a direction that wasn't healthy for it, that it was resulting in unemployment and schools that are hurting financially, a county that's hurting financially, infrastructure that can't be paid for, and all those things that we've seen, and they've rejected that. So their voices have been heard. And those are voices that we can't ignore.
And I guess I would argue with your discussion about then and now. I think that we've all been on the same path of progress and prosperity and investment and economic growth, regardless of the supervisors in office.
I disagree. The county is famously anti-growth and anti-business, and I think if you talk to the business community, you would find that's the case. And you don't even have to talk to them. You just look around at the closed buildings and the empty storefronts and whatnot. I mean, Arnold, I think, is probably a pretty good example. Lisa could speak to that better than anybody. But I believe in the last couple of elections, certainly in the last one, people have awakened to this fact, and they've changed their. They've voted with a vision of something different for the future, and it in large part rejects the pathway of the past. I can't ignore that as a representative. So I agree with Ms. Crane wholeheartedly that voices of the people come in many forms.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there's obviously...
That's not what I said. That was not my intent. When I said, sadly, the voice of the people, where was it here? Hold on. Come in many forms. Let me find it. The voices of the people come in many forms, some written, some loud in volume, and some just a whisper. And my point in saying that is that all the voices must carry the same weight. All the people out here and yours have the same weight. Yours doesn't carry any more weight than mine or anyone else's. And the people who are bedridden, who can't get here to speak, their voices count too. So when you turn it into a political election thing, that's not what I was talking about. I'm just saying that you may sit up here, you may be the decision makers, but there's an awful lot of people out there, and you're not hearing from all of them. And when people run for office, since you brought it up, when they run for office and they haven't already been embedded in their communities to know what all these different populations are saying and how they feel about things and the things that impact them, then they really can't represent us with a wealth of prior information. So all I was saying is that your voices here on this panel, on this commission, and the Board of Supervisors should not carry any more weight. You are representing the voices of the people, all of them. And so to present something without, I mean, there are records. I was in these meetings, and everybody voiced their opinions, and it was all recorded on the walls. And we have pictures to show that. Now, there are a lot of people that didn't show up for these meetings and now come back and go, hey, you know, I don't like that. Well, you know what, we have to keep building on what we built before. And that's why we keep stopping and starting, because someone comes late to the process and late to the conversation. So I'm just saying, you know, we got to catch up and honor what's been said before and what's been done before, because Calaveras County is, I think, all the hands will go up in the air, that a most unique and beautiful place. And when you see parts of it that are really nasty or maybe not so beautiful, it's because we did it to it. We failed to plan, or we allowed it to happen. So
Thank you.
don't get me started. Thank you.
Yes,
So,
provide some direction
there are-
here.
yeah.
Thank you.
There are obviously some very strongly held beliefs here.
Yes.
And it is up to you five to decide how we're going to move this forward. I suggest we sort of break it down into manageable pieces, and the first decision is, do you want a single statement to serve as a vision statement or not? Question number one. If there is an agreement that some type of single vision statement is appropriate, then let's narrow down language of that. Then we can move into the guiding principles. So,
I was hoping we'd go that way too.
So the vision, so just focus on the vision statement, back to that. And
I'll try and what I don't have in substance, I'll make up for in brevity, because this is a very, I think it's a simple thing. The vision statement should be a statement, which means you don't have to worry much about punctuation, because it ought to be one sentence. It ought to be as simple as possible. And I've read all the stuff that people have sent us, and the people on the commission have given their opinions. They've all said kind of the same thing, but it ought to be boiled down to something such as I was just scribbling here, to make Calaveras County a better place to live, work, recreate, create employment, and retire. What else is there to say? That's what all these other ones, stacks of paper, say all that same things. Seems kind of unnecessary to go through a lot of verbiage to say something very simple.
so maybe, Ted, just to kind of clarify that, we do have a one-sentence vision statement that's been proposed, which is the historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources, and the distinction of its physical beauty will continue to create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable and memorable experience for visitors to the county. Does that work for you?
That's not bad.
Okay.
It's a little lengthy, but
Okay.
it's all right.
All right, we're getting somewhere.
Well, actually, there were two proposed. I had one too.
I didn't see one.
that was the...
Oh, the first one?
That was
Oh, yes,
the
it was.
statement
Okay.
that Mr. Wooster submitted last week.
Okay, so
last meeting.
let's kind of keep going here, and then when we get to you, Kelly, would you mind just holding for 1 second? Lisa?
So I'm good with the vision statement. I think that as far as listening to the people, many of the people that aren't here today are the working class. They can't be here. And so I got those phone calls. They are participating here because they're watching it on TV every day. Their voice counts. So I will tell you that I received many, many phone calls from the business communities. I am going to listen to the voice of everybody. I don't have an issue with the draft 2008 vision plan that was worked on so hard. My issue is going to come in on the guiding principles, and I say we go with a vision statement and drop the principles. They are not principles. They are demands on this county. They are demands on private property rights, and I don't support the guiding principles, but I will support the vision statement that's written.
We're making progress. Commissioner Tano?
Well, so my impression was that the guiding principles would be more, or a set of guiding principles is more important than the vision statement, but you're seeing it the other way around.
I am seeing it the other way around. How can we come to terms with these guiding principles when
I can't.
there's balance on both sides of the fence, but these people worked very hard on this. And the phone calls that I got were not in agreement with this, but yet you've got people that are retired here that can attend and have their voice be heard here. And I think people forget, there's folks at home that watch this and speak and comment to it.
I'm with you 100% on that.
I don't think we're going to be able to come to good agreements on these guiding principles. And I don't feel it's necessary because as we go through each element, as Peter stated at the beginning of this meeting, we're going to have an objective at the end of each element. Those are our goals right there. So why do we have to complicate it? Sometimes less is more. And I think that we go through each element, we create the objective to each element, and we move on with a general plan that's general, not specific in telling us how we're going to operate our properties, how we're going to operate our businesses. And
I hear you there, but here's what I'm going to play Peter for a second. When we go through the elements, we're supposed to have a vision statement, a guide to how we compose the language in that element. And it's supposed to be consistent across the general plan. So we're supposed to be able to look back at something and say, you know what, we're going off track here because our vision, I call it vision statement / guiding principles, we're not complying with that. So that's why I think it's important to have something that's a little bit more complete as a guide that serves for every subsequent element, for every element of the...
I think that if you look at state law, state regulation, county ordinances, how are you going to go off track? We're being told what to do. So, I mean, so why add more to it? We have to comply with the laws. We have regulations, we have ordinances. I mean, how to even determine to get started on a project is beyond me because you got a book this thick over here and then 20 over here. So adding to it is adding more complications. We have to comply with state law. You can't go off track. We have to comply with county law. You can't go off track.
Well,
and if you do, you're breaking the law.
If it were that cut and dried, then we wouldn't need a general plan at all because they would all have been written for us.
Well, but we have to have a general plan based on our county. We have resources in our county that are different than other counties. We have a logging community. We have ranchers. We have asphalt. Let's go there if you want. We have resource lands in this county that technically give us our general plan and how we have to be looking at our future. I mean, your area is different than mine. My area can't be developed. We're surrounded by state and national forests. That's it. We have a strip of Highway 4 and the state mandates what happens in my town mostly. So, I mean, it has to be general to our county, and that's what we're doing. We're looking at our elements, complying with the state law. I mean, we could say anything we want in those elements, but the state's going to reject it, so we really aren't the decision makers. Those elements are pre-decided by the state. We're just trying to add our own personal visions and wishes for our county into it and have the state approve of what we're doing. He's not arguing with me. Something's wrong.
He's thinking. So, but I mean, we're going to get to the guiding principles.
Right.
So if we can make some headway on the vision and.
Yeah, I think the draft vision thing that David put out was a good set of guiding principles.
Okay, so we're going to get to those in a minute, Ted.
I mean.
Yes.
So this is valuable information, but it's really more the guiding principles than the very brief statement of vision.
Let me get Ted's and Lisa's reaction to this idea.
You don't want mine?
Fawn, if you want to chime in.
Okay, thank you.
Only because
she was going to anyway.
Because Ted offered a vision statement, which I thought was pretty good, by the way, and Lisa just floored me with her her statements. I like, as a vision statement, I like Ted's, I like Kelly's. What would you folks say to tacking on, I'm suggesting Kelly's as the vision statement, and mine become the guiding principles?
Okay, I do have something to say about that, and I'm going to jump in before you two.
Jump in.
Okay, I've got some problems with Mr. Wooster's vision statement. I'm sorry, Kelly. In that it only represents a very small segment of the people in this county. It says private parties with private property. And my point is, private parties are not the only holders of property, or are they the only managers or overseers of productive resources. And I guess it's the way you would define productive resources. And the way that I interpret Mr. Wooster's vision of productive resources is that, because he describes them as agriculture, mining, forestry, which are all very important industries. They're all very important productive resources in our county, but they're not the only ones. Productive resources include schools and school teachers. It includes our local businesses, giant sequoias, national and state parks, our broadband infrastructure, our wireless infrastructure, the Visitors Bureau, the county fair, very productive resource. So finding that productive resources are under the sole purview of private parties with private property is just plain wrong. And especially, I think it's inappropriate as a vision statement that's representative of all of our interests.
Okay, let me offer an alternative. The vision statement of the original one, the historical character, et cetera, as the vision statement, or Ted's, which I like very well, because it's real simple, and by the way, I think it's actually I think it's better. Ted's vision statement, nice one sentence, guiding principles from this one, which seems to get some traction, and we're done.
I'd like to hear Ted's statement again.
Can you reread that, Ted? Did you have it written down?
Well, kind of, in my abbreviation here. The vision statement should be to make Calaveras County a better place to live, work, recreate, create employment, and to retire.
That's visionary.
Can I just add? Mr. Tuno just said, and the general principles, the guiding principles from this one, and he held it up, and it wasn't clear for the record what that was. When you said the guiding...
Which one were you holding up, your guiding principles?
Was it your guiding principle?
Oh, I was going with the original one that was posted with our packet. The original one, the 08 version.
As the guiding principles?
No. Oh, yeah, well, I wasn't referring to the guiding principles. I was referring to
the vision statement in the guiding,
on
in that
page.
And then you were adding the guiding principles from... And you
Which
held...
source for the guiding principles? You were pointing...
Oh, I'm sorry. Mine.
Okay, thank you.
I called it a vision statement, but it can easily be described as guiding principles. I like Ted's very simple, straightforward, all-inclusive statement. I think it covers the ground. I think it's better than the original one.
Did you read this one? Preserve the history, heritage, and balance of our beautiful rural county while growing economic opportunities.
I've read everything.
So can I ask, what's the problem with the one that was developed in 2008 through the outreach and planning process?
I told you before, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
But I think Ted's is better. I mean,
But,
This
I mean,
is
you
not-
think Ted's is better, but there's a lot of people that thought this one was the best one. So if they're comparable, or
No, wait a
if there's
second.
something that we could do to tweak this one a little bit.
The people didn't write this, Minter Harnish wrote this.
I'm not Minter Harnish, and I was at all of those workshops. I was an active participant in the process. I was not a planning commissioner then. I was very involved. I don't work for Minter Harnish.
I think that
So that, you can't say Minter Harnish. I'm not Minter Harnish.
Okay, let me turn the question back at you. What's sacred about that sentence?
The
that
sacred
a lot
part,
of people
that's
worked on
right.
it in 2008.
And if you can't tell me that it's because of, there has to be, for me, an overwhelming, overriding reason, not just, I like Ted's better, to dump this. It's got to have a really good reason why.
Well,
You have that.
Other than one's better than the other? That's not a good enough reason? Of
Well, that's, that's one
personal
person.
opinion.
That's right, personal,
course
yeah.
it is, that's all personal opinion.
But this is personal opinion of hundreds of people. Now, whether it was inclusive of every single segment represented, I can't say that. But I can say, for sure, hundreds, potentially thousands of people versus you liking it better or Ted liking it better. Commissioner Brewster.
okay, the problem I had with it was, it speaks of the value of the productive resources, but they're not worth anything unless somebody does something with them. I said this last time. You did point out that the one I had tied to private parties, and schools and so forth are not private, but schools are actually not treated in our general plan at all, so they're irrelevant.
No, I don't think they are relevant. Maybe you didn't get my point, is that productive, you can't define productive resources so narrowly that only private people have productive resources. That's my point. It's productive resources are things that work. They're really assets, and assets can be defined as something that's useful or valuable to a thing or a person, or it could be property as having value to meet debts, commitments, and legacies. It's a very broad definition, and your vision was narrowly defined to a very small segment that's really tied to what I think because it's duplicated throughout the principles, is natural resources as being the only productive resources in this county. And that's simply not true. I mean, we have all of our infrastructure, our sewer and water districts, our transportation system, the key assets for venues, like I mentioned, the county fair. People visit the giant sequoias. Those are all productive resources that you can't discount, and they're not all privately owned.
No, I understand that. But my point was that somebody has to make something out of all those productive resources. They just don't sit there and produce value all by themselves. My second problem is, take the phrase, the distinction of its physical beauty. It sounds nice, but what does that really mean? Does that mean everything's got to stay the same? For example, all of our forests need to stay the same? I don't think so. Our forests are actually a big mess because of mismanagement by the federal government for years and years and years. They're a huge fire trap. And when you talk about the distinction of physical, will continue to create, et cetera, what you're saying is, as I understand it, you don't want it to change. I think it has to change.
I agree. I don't think it does have to change. And I would say I think you're maybe reading a little bit more into this than I think was the intent, in that, its physical beauty will continue, and that is basically that, we're not going to pave paradise, right?
We're not going to what?
Pave paradise, put up a parking lot.
Well, we may have to pave some of it.
That's true, absolutely true.
And that's the problem I have with that. That's the problem I have with it. That's why I prefer Ted's.
So what one word would you change to make it not read how you're seeing it? What word could you wordsmith in there to make it more acceptable to you?
My impression of it, Kelly, is that it's so general, it doesn't prevent you from doing anything, nor does it direct you to do anything.
I think this is where we're getting hung up, is that we're looking at the vision statement in the terms of principles and goals. And that because we don't, we're trying to get the specificity of the principles or the goals into the vision statement. And if there's, I think we could add a line or a phrase to this that talks about economic vitality or private
It's on my
property.
notes. If we said something like the distinction of its physical beauty and economic vitality will continue to create a high quality of life. So it talks about, we're doing stuff. We're creating jobs, we're making
I think
investments.
that's better.
So to use the forest example that Mr. Wooster brought up, we all appreciate the forest. We recognize there are things that need to be done, both, at the federal level, which is out of our control, as well as, locally. So we want, and as we get into the details of the resource production element, we'll look at, well, how can we then maintain this forest in a healthy manner that provides the scenic beauty that we all enjoy, but at the same time, the economic vitality and the utilization of the productive resources. That's where the rubber hits the road as we get into the details. But we're always saying, we want a healthy forest. That's our vision, a healthy forest. Now, there's a lot of different views of what that means. Don't touch it, log it, everything. But that's worked out in the details of the goals, the policies, and limitations. But the view is the healthy forest. We want a vibrant economy. We want productive resources. Those are the things that are our vision. So I think if we add a statement or two in here, I think we can come up with a vision statement that satisfies the desires of everyone.
Let me make a suggestion, if I may, with the chair's permission.
Absolutely.
Mr. Wooster's problem, as I see it with the statement, is that it suggests everything's been fine up to this point, let's keep going. I agree that it hasn't been fine up to this point. I think a lot of people share that view. So if you cross out the words continue to from that one sentence, it takes away the
implication
the
that
notion,
we've already been
implication
enjoying it.
Yeah.
That's fine. I agree with that. And I would just say, and we would add, and the distinction of its physical beauty and economic vitality create a high quality of life for residents and remarkable and memorable experience.
Oh, read that again for me. Where
So
you
the
picking
whole
up?
thing would say the historical character, let's see, right. So the historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources, and the distinction of its physical beauty and economic vitality create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable, memorable experience for visitors to the county.
Bingo.
I like while growing our economic opportunities. Because economic vitality doesn't do anything for me, but growing our economic
that works.
opportunities would
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
I like it. Now,
Yeah.
that comes at the end then, right?
No, it's in place of economic vitality, right? So if it's physical beauty while growing our economic opportunities create a high quality of life, is that what you said?
Perfect.
Okay.
Can you read the whole thing for me?
Okay. I got to remember this part. Okay, so the historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources, and the distinction of its physical beauty while growing its economic opportunities create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable and memorable experience for visitors to the county.
Ta-da.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any comments from the public regarding this?
Thank you.
Sounds good to us.
Oh, perfect. Okay, all right, so,
It should, they were your
thank you
words.
very much. We worked through that one. Do we need a 5-minute-er?
I think we need a 5
voter to tell him that we like that.
Do we? Do you need a vote?
I
I don't think we-
He stated he wanted to have a consensus that that would be something that would move forward to the supervisors.
We could.
It doesn't hurt. I think there is consensus here. I've heard
Yes,
everyone nod
okay,
their
but
head,
let's take a vote.
just-
So is there a motion to accept the vision as amended or proposed or written?
So moved.
All right.
Second?
Okay, it's moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Perfect.
Yay.
So should we take a 5-minute-er?
Sure.
I know. So we're back here just like 2 minutes after 11. Commission meeting?
What are you gonna do that?
You are?
I know, I thought we were.
It's going to be an interesting board meeting.
Are you guys all ready? We're going to reconvene the planning commission meeting and we're going to continue our discussion, not a vision, but Annette, did you need a restatement of the vision?
If you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, and do you happen to have that, Peter?
Yeah.
So just so that Annette can get that.
The historical character of the county's communities, the value of its productive resources, the distinction of its physical beauty, and the distinction of its physical beauty while growing economic opportunities create a high quality of life for residents and a remarkable and memorable. Had that bite of chocolate. Memorable experience for visitors to the county.
Okay, great. So we're going to be moving on to the guiding principles. And perhaps I think maybe we should start with Lisa. And you're,
Because you think mine's simple?
well, because you want to dump them all. So,
Then I don't need to speak about my message. Why waste hours and minutes? I just think that they're too restrictive. I think that it's putting more into it than we need. I think we have his and her sides, and I sit and I looked at those and I tried so hard, because at the last meeting I said, let's merge. Let's merge some of this. Let's take some of what Kelly wrote, let's take some of what in 2008 was written, and I couldn't find common ground on one principle statement. So if principles don't have to be in there, why do we have to make everybody upset? Why can't we just say, you know what, let's move on. Let's get down to the objectives in the elements, because each element speaks for itself. And when we get to the objectives of what that element stands for and represents in our county, let's make it general and move forward, and then stop all our fighting. That's my way of merging.
and my comment about chucking them all is that, as I mentioned before, I find, you're all right, Ted?
No.
Do you want her water?
Yeah, no, he never drinks water.
Oh, water's good for you.
I do have some.
Where is it? You want me to go get it?
No. Take care of itself.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. Is that guiding principles are just that, they're guides, and that goals, strategies, implementation measures will change. I mean, the general plan is going to be amended from time to time, and the approach that the county wants to take to, for example, its land use or one of the elements may change. But when they change, they would have this guiding principle, or, you know, that reflects the sort of overarching ideas about what the county, how those changes, I guess, to me, I'm not saying this very eloquently, but it's a test. I mean, it's a test to see if we change in this direction, if we create this goal, if we create these strategies and implementation measures, are we holding true to what our community said is the direction they want to take?
I think your community plans that are being put into the general plan speak for your community individually. I think adding the principles and then looking at it and saying we need to change it later is just adding more work.
I don't want to spend 10 more years on this. I think state law, I think county ordinance and regulations will control which direction we're going to go into. And the vision statements are just that. They're visions that, like you said, will need to be constantly changing. And obviously, they were done in 2008. Here we are in 2015, 8.5 years later. They're still not accepted. So do we want to spend the next 10 years working on the same vision statements? Because nobody is going to agree 100% on a single one of them. They're just going to create chaos into our future where we have to keep changing them. We're going to go in the direction of the laws, the ordinances. They're going to take us where we have to go. It's not what we want, it's where we have to go. The vision statements are wants. They're not mandated. The elements are mandates. That's what we have to follow. So if they have to be rewritten, are we back here 5 years from now saying, well, that didn't quite work? Because that's kind of what happened with our last general plan. We never met a single element. Look at our state housing element. Did we meet one goal in that?
Yes, I believe we did.
How many did we meet? Can somebody get him a bottle of water, please?
Ted,
I'm sorry.
are you going to
No,
be all right?
I'm just worried about you.
Yeah. We're going to give Ted a moment.
It's not like me to drink straight mix.
That's true.
I don't have anything else in my car for you.
Isn't there an open bottle in your back seat?
No. One of those little tiny airplane carry-on things.
I'm going to need a stash in my desk after this.
Okay. We're going to take a moment. You just...
Anyway, that's my position, and I'll step back and let the others speak, and you control the meeting.
I never control this meeting.
You're doing a great job. I think
Thank you.
so. Keep going.
So, Commissioner Penna?
Here's where I think they come into play, where they have value. We are to come up with a general plan at the end of the day that has internal consistency. Well, when you're looking at a particular element, and today it's going to be noise, there's going to be some bigger ones coming up. Internal consistency with what? You have to have a starting point. You can't name one of the elements and say they all need to be consistent with that element. That's arbitrary. And it wouldn't work anyway. Where the guiding principles offer assistance, and they're not, they're just guiding, they're not all controlling, if you will. They offer a look back when we're going through the elements, a look back to say, are we being consistent with our guiding principles? Is this an area in a particular element where we need to make sure that we're being consistent? Some it won't be covered by guiding principles. It'll be something else. But where it's possible to conform an element to guiding principles with respect to some language, then this would give us that document to look back on, and so I think they have value. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult to create internal consistency when you don't have a starting point. And this, to me, is the starting point. It provides that starting point.
So when I read your comments about what you'd like to see for guiding principles, and I read the Planning Coalition's or the work that was done in 2008, your guys are so far apart that you're either going to apply your personal opinions into this, because right now it becomes a personal vote. It's not a law that says we have to say this, or, and they're going to be upset, or we're going to apply theirs and you're going to be upset. Where's the commonality in both of these?
Well, I'm not saying there is any commonality. I'm saying that my view of the 08 principles are too specific. That level of specificity belongs elsewhere, in the general plan, element by element.
Okay.
Whereas mine is more of an overarching approach, a mindset. That's what I'm trying to provide, which is where I think a guiding principle should be.
And I think possibly that we may not be as far apart as,
Kelly did that.
yeah, wait, here you go.
I think it was a cough drop.
That's the same thing, I think. It's a lemon thing, is that, was his a cough drop?
Can you back your chair up just a little bit?
It's a Ricola.
Oh, they came from Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
So I'm thinking that, because what I'm hearing you saying is that they're important as, basically, as a guide. Lisa thinks they may be, they're too specific, and I think what you're saying too is that they may be too specific, and maybe they need to be a little bit broader in scope, the way that you've written in some of yours. It's a little bit more broader in scope, less specificity. And I think if we looked at one of them, let's just say let's just try, just for the heck of it.
Which one?
On the property rights.
Go ahead.
And let's just look at the options that we have.
Well, the original has no private property rights
No,
principle.
that's right, so that's easy, takes one less factor to consider. Kelly's provided an option as far as property rights, and then we have Commissioner.
I would add that my property rights offering, that segment number 2, is an edited version of the one from Monterey County.
Okay. All right, so now.
Theirs is much more extensive.
Okay, so if we looked at, I'm just going to throw it on out there, and then you guys can, let's just see how far we get with this. So in Kelly's version, again, I have, I take exception to the word of private property because, property rights are not the exclusive right, or property rights aren't the exclusive right of, since it's not just private property, it's also public property, special district property. Everybody should have the same rights. I find yours to be, if you're saying that we should be more, yours being Commissioner Tano's, is it Tano? Tano or Tuno? Okay, I want to get this right. Okay. Just call you David, right? Just like Lisa.
No, my name's not as hard as hers.
So you're saying we should be more, less specific, more sort of kind of getting the nuance of property rights. So what if we just said, the county will protect rights of property owners, balanced with the public welfare? Something like that, no?
Because you're always, whenever you put the caveat is what I object to, and it's why I objected to the version that was offered by CPC. It ought to stand alone. Now, in reality, there are conditions with property rights. That's by law. You buy a piece of property, it's got some zoning to it. Maybe you buy a piece of property that there's an HOA, or there's some, requirements, neighborhood thing. So that's, you don't need to put that in there, it's just by law it exists. But whenever you say, hey, we honor property rights, but we're going to balance them with something else, it's like, where do you stand on it? And I'm trying to suggest language here that tells the community, we fundamentally uphold and protect property rights. And it's understood that that doesn't mean, as someone suggested I thought it meant, that a person can do anything with their property that they want to. That's ridiculous. that is just fundamentally false, and everybody knows it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't tell the community, we uphold property rights. Unspoken is wherever possible, wherever allowable. You don't have to write all those words in there.
So what was you wrote like 15 sentences, what was your one point?
Well, and then my point is, that's not, I mean, if we're talking about plain language, this is not plain language to me. It's like, we got unconstitutional, unnecessary taking. I mean, those are legal terms, not to be construed. I mean, this is not plain language to me. And the last sentence is really an implementation measure. It says what the Board of Supervisors will do. I mean, that's not a guiding principle. That's not sort of overarching. That's like, you shall, and that's, you know, and possibly that should be in the general plan as an implementation measure someplace, but not as a guiding principle. I mean, I don't know, what's wrong with just saying that we're going to protect property rights?
You have a problem with the last sentence because you think it's a
That's an implementation.
It's a policy statement.
Well, it's an action. You're saying what the supervisors shall do. It's not really, it's not a guiding principle. That's an implementation measure. That's an action that you're saying the Board of Supervisors shall do this.
I follow you.
So what if we just said we'll protect property rights?
Doesn't the first sentence of what Mr. Tuna wrote say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear, he just said we'll protect property rights, though. The county shall protect property rights.
Okay, so your problem was with the second sentence where it says, goes on about, you know, no taking.
Well, it's because that's legalese, unconstitutional or unnecessary taking. I mean, taking is a legal term to me. I mean, it's like if you're saying you want the general plan to be in plain language, to me, that's not really plain language.
Well,
So what if you just said the general plan will protect the rights of private property owners?
No, it can't be private, not just private. Everybody's got the same rights.
What?
There's a lot of public property owners in this county, right?
Corporate property.
Yeah, there's special districts.
That's private.
There's what's private?
You said corporate.
Well, that Ted did. There's the veterans in my town, they own quite a bit of property. Don't they have the same rights as private property owners?
I didn't write private property, I just wrote property rights.
That's
No,
why
I said the word, that's why she said that.
Just say property. That way we all have equal rights.
Why doesn't that first sentence cover it all?
I will just point out that the term fundamental rights also can be a legal term, although for constitutional rights, the county can't create new ones on its own, but just, it also is a legal term of art.
So, I mean, if we're talking about simple, the county will protect property rights.
The general plan will protect the rights of property owners abiding by the Constitution.
The Constitution, or is it this general plan? I mean, why are we referring to some?
This is why I said you've got hardcore private property, and the word private in there, private property rights people and those that aren't, so we've got to find some words in between that are going to flow.
But having their property rights protected,
Just saying that you're going to protect property rights, what does that mean?
So that's,
what does that mean?
I don't know, it's
Does
open.
it mean that you're going to protect people from building on it?
Well,
Does it mean you're going to protect people from developing it?
I don't know, it's a guiding principle, I guess. So it's like we're saying, if that's what they're saying they want is protection of property rights, we're going to protect them. Now, how we're going to protect them, as you mentioned, is going to be discussed in the land use issue. It's like we're going to protect you from...
Not necessarily, because, for example, there isn't a property rights element in the general plan.
Right.
So what I'm intending...
There's not an economic development element or a community development element.
Correct, and I'll get to that.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that's why the second sentence adds some level of specificity. In other words, it answers the question, Elisa's question, what do you mean protect property rights? This answers that question.
Okay, what did Kelly write? Excuse me, Commissioner Wooster.
Well, that second sentence has been ended where the comma is. Doesn't that kind of cover it?
Say again, please, Ted?
That second sentence, it says, the county intends that neither the implementation of this general plan or any of its elements, period.
Well, no, that's not a complete sentence.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So if you read Commissioner Wooster's and you took out one word, county government must respect and protect the property rights of people in their efforts to maintain and develop productive resources in the county. I was just taking out the word private. Would that work for you?
I don't know. Give it some thought.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay. And then I'm reading the Planning Coalitions, the newest one that they submitted.
You could amend the first line of the planning coalitions to read, "The general plan will protect the rights of property owners."
I did that, and she didn't like it.
Who?
You. I said that. I took their sentence.
Who's she? No, me,
Commissioner
right?
McLaughlin.
Oh, me, she. So the general plan will,
Protect the rights of property owners.
oh, I'm good with that.
Which,
But then, then I'm the one who didn't like it because I said, what are we protecting?
Oh, okay, all right. I was like, no, I like that.
It was Commissioner Muterkees.
And it goes back to the rest of the plan. What's in the plan? Are we saying that we are going to somehow try to remove some rights? No, but that's not going to. If we look at a goal, we look at a policy, we look at an implementation measure, and we say, oh, this doesn't meet this overall guiding principle, then it's not internally consistent. And it's not the direction that we're saying we want to go. We want to protect property rights. It's not going to be so specific as to, some action that we're going to be taking, but it's guidance for the plan. The plan then guides all the other actions that we take. So it's a step, we just keep sort of stepping down to the very, finally we get to a development project. And as you said, there's lots of laws that we have to abide by. We have to do environmental analysis. We've got to protect very endangered plants. But at the same time, our intent is to protect the rights of the property owner to utilize his property in an economic,
Oh, add that
valuable
word
way.
to it and I'll be happy.
Which word?
You just added to it and you said to utilize it, to utilize the property for economic development or what have you, whatever you want to add on to that, but,
Here's the other thing. Take another example.
okay.
The guiding principle, the county will be business friendly. Nice, sounds good. Now, but to you, you're going to say, well, what do you mean business friendly? Does that mean that, you're going to pave it over? Or does that mean that we're going to have, unbridled development and subdivisions everywhere? Or we're going to attract like all kinds of industries? But a guiding principle saying we'll be business friendly is just that. So when you get to the land use element where we say our goal is to provide a streamlined permit and building process that allows for timely development in areas planned and zoned for commercial and industrial use. That's where you get the specificity. That's where you find out that's what we mean by business friendly.
Okay, so I guess my issue is the vagueness of the statements for the principles. I mean, we just had a hearing 2 weeks ago that the words are vague in our ordinance, and it caused mass chaos. So by being so vague,
it opens the door to more chaos, because it can be interpreted by you one way and me another. That's why I say leave them out. You can't interpret it, you just have to follow the law.
I think that the directive of the plan is that it goes from the broad, most vague statement, the vision statement that we have. We all have sort of, what we've all agreed upon as a vision, how we'd like to see it. How we get there is going to be different. And so we step down from very vague to slightly vague to more precise to very precise. And then the implementation, even more of that specificity. So as you referred to, the ordinance vagueness is different than a policy vagueness.
Let me ask you a question, Peter. When you're looking at a project coming before you, and you're looking at the general plan, do you ever look at the guiding principles?
I have.
Okay, and how does that help you with your decision-making process?
But the guiding principles are more directed towards the creation of the goals and policies than they are.
So how can,
And so this is the sort of direction that we say we want the plan to go this way.
so
You know,
you're
we have this
saying if we
vision-
give you guiding principles, as you're working through each element and bringing it forward to us, it guides you on how to?
No.
As you work through it.
In other words, at the end of the day, when the general plan is done, you could take the guiding principles and burn them. It wouldn't matter, because they should have been incorporated into all of the elements of the general plan, wherever applicable.
See, that's my point.
They would be consistent with that.
It sets a tone, and actually
And if
that's...
we amend the plan in the future, we say, well, are these principles
Right.
still what we...
Are they still valid?
Are they still valid? So
And-
we don't quite want to burn them, but,
No.
but the usefulness of them
Yeah.
is in the creation of the
Peter
plan.
doesn't need to go back to those when he's making a judgment. He needs to go to the policies and the goals, because to the extent that they need to be in there, they're in there.
And that's why initially he said he'd like to take these immediately to the board, because they are going to set the
Right.
tone. He's not going to wait till the end, he's going to take them to the board and say, all right, this is what they've come up with, are you guys comfortable with this?
Right.
Because when developing all of the other elements and the goals and all the strategies that are contained therein, that...
These need to be hanging on the wall.
That's right.
Okay, being said like that,
Right.
I can move a little.
Can you wait a second, Tom? As Commissioner Wooster, is there, before I'm going to ask the public to, because they're kind of getting a little bit of a flavor, I think, where we're going here, sort of.
Well, I suggest we do this. We say the general plan will protect the rights of property owners, and then we say county government will respect and protect the property rights of people in their efforts to maintain and develop productive resources in the county.
So two separate
sentences.
So-
guiding
Okay, wait,
principles.
say that again.
It's
so-
adding this sentence that you pointed out to this sentence right here, and that happens there. Got it? It's two sentences. This first one, this second one.
Where did the second sentence come
Okay.
That's number
First
3 of
sentence,
Mr.
bullet point
Wooster's.
number 2 in my draft.
3 of...
Second sentence, bullet point number 3 in Mr. Wooster's draft, minus the word private. Did I get that right?
And I changed the word must to will.
Yeah, I like that too, will, instead of must, yeah. Just sounds more
Will.
positive.
Okay, and then you're striking the word private under county government?
Yes.
Okay, county.
This one here, right? That private. That's the...
Okay, so. I know, we'll go over it. Property rights to be held as fundamental rights by the county and the general plan.
Period.
County government will respect and protect the property rights of people in their efforts to maintain and develop productive resources in the county.
Correct.
Did you just say the whole thing?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And what was I not supposed to?
No, you read it correctly.
Is that what you're...
Well, actually, I was picking up on the one from CPC for the first sentence.
Okay, that's what I thought. It sounded different.
Yeah, which would say the general plan will protect the rights of property owners, period.
Okay?
And then continuing, as Lisa read from what I had done earlier.
Oh.
That county government must respect, or will respect...
and
Oh,
protect.
so your first sentence is from...
And protect the private property rights of people.
CPC's.
So I think that's a nice, good kind of compromise, finding a
It reflects the interests of
I would agree with that.
the people that came before and the people that are here today.
The general plan will protect the rights of property owners. County government will respect and protect it's kind of a repeat.
Well, the second sentence adds a little bit more to it.
Okay, the general plan will protect the rights of property owners. County government will respect and protect. So we could,
Well, you know what, I can make that one sentence.
Good.
yeah, I can too.
Yeah,
The
let's
general
do that.
plan will protect the rights of property owners in their efforts, et cetera.
There
And
you
the
go.
reference
There
to
you go.
utilize productive. Does that work for you? So could you read that again? The whole thing?
You talking to me?
Yes.
The general plan will protect the rights of property owners in their efforts to maintain and develop productive resources in the county, period.
Yep, I can go there.
Deal?
Well, I think that works. Let's hear from the public.
Are we going to do that one at a time?
I don't
Claudia?
know, maybe. Maybe. You know, it's pretty significant issues, as we know.
I just wanted
Whatever.
to throw out, there's another way to do this. In some counties, the guiding principles are not stuck right underneath the vision statement at the beginning. They're actually separated out and included in the beginning of each element. And one thing you might find as you go through these elements, one by one, guiding principles might become apparent to you. In other words, as you find, well, this policy I don't like, and this is why I don't like it, you could say, well, you know, there is a guiding principle. This is a guiding principle we should put in the resource production element. For example, Commissioner Wooster was talking about, you know, it's nice to talk about productive resources, but they're not productive unless somebody's doing something with them. You know, that might end up becoming a guiding principle for the resource production element, something along those lines. So if this is getting too hard.
I don't know, I thought we
Okay.
made a lot of headway
But
there.
here's why I think that doesn't work.
Okay,
Is
fine.
because there won't be a guiding principle statement that's directly related to, that targets any specific element or all specific elements. You won't be able to, there's not going to be a one-to-one correlation. When you get to the element, and there's a little introductory part of it, let's say public safety. Okay, well, that's going to have, there would be some kind of a statement that you want to introduce the public safety section with that may or may not draw from language in the guiding principles.
Right, so what I'm saying is you could go back at that point. At the end of the process, you would have sets of guiding principles in each element and go, you know, some of those make sense to add to the, underneath the vision statement. So there's a way that, you can do this either way, from either end of the process. But if you're good, that's great, that's great.
Well, I think that the point that they made about being able to have Peter take something forward to the supervisors and make sure that we're on the same page as them and giving him a guidance.
That's fine.
That's how I got sold back.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Could you read that one more time, because I think I have a
The
concern.
property rights.
The general plan will protect the rights of property owners in their efforts to maintain and develop productive resources in the county.
What about the property rights of owners who are not planning to do that? Just,
To do what?
what about all the, I mean, there's a lot of property rights out there that maybe aren't,
Productive resources?
the intention isn't to do productive, or, yes. I mean,
Well,
it sounds like you're,
The first sentence
it
says
sounds
the
like
general
we're saying
plan
we're
will
only
protect
going
the rights of property owners
owners
so that it's
in
all
their
inclusive.
endeavor to do this. What if that's not their endeavor? What if they just,
It
I don't know.
says
It sounds like
in
we're
their
leaving
efforts
out-
to maintain, is what it says.
to maintain?
Or develop productive resources in the county.
or develop.
So we could change the word and or.
But what if it's not that's what I'm saying. What if that's not what they're doing? What if they're just living there and they want to build a little shed or something, or they want to do this or do that, but it
Their
has
rights are
nothing to do
protected
with
for them
that?
to be able to do that.
It's included.
Well, it didn't sound included. I'm just saying, it didn't sound like it was included.
So I think you made a good point, though, because
Instead of using the word and, it should be or.
Yeah, good catch.
Okay. And maybe we'll read, before, when we come back, let's read it one more time for it to take a vote on it. Go ahead.
There was one more sentence in the CPC's revised one that might work as well in this, and that was, and I'm not using the whole sentence, but the note-takings will occur as a result of any general plan, policy, or program. I thought that was a very good guiding principle, because you'd have to look back at that every time we do something in an element. Does that do that? So I thought that was a good.
Well, the issue that I had with that sentence was clarified through numerous court rulings. Whether it's clarified through a court ruling or not shouldn't make a difference.
And that's why my edited version didn't have that in there.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't include that part of the sentence.
Mr. Mayhew?
Note-taking will occur as a result. I thought that was pretty.
Lou Mayhew, would you read the, what's being proposed once more, please?
You want me to do it?
Sure. I've got it written down.
The general plan will protect the rights of property owners in their efforts to maintain or develop productive resources in the county.
Well, Mr. Mayhew's here at the,
That's my point. What if they're not, their intent is not to maintain a productive resource or develop? You got it?
Yeah, that's my point. I think perhaps it would be better just to stop it after the first sentence as you originally had it, because this to me creates a bit of ambiguity. What I take from it is that my property right is modified by I have to maintain it.
As you see fit. We're not
Well,
telling you how to
yeah,
maintain it.
Yeah, but you're introducing the idea of maintenance here. I've got a property right. Now, yes, I need to maintain it, I guess, to certain standards. But
State law says you have to.
But that's a different element.
so you're talking about maintenance like paint and?
No, I think what they're getting at
I-
is it's maintaining productive resources. It's the productive resources part that I think I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That someone who is just enjoying the property, living on it, not necessarily producing anything other than enjoyment of life, also have property rights. That's, I think, what I'm hearing. I think that maybe going back to two separate sentences would satisfy me.
Yeah, I agree. That does solve that problem, because you've got one that's just a blanket statement, all-inclusive, and if another one is needed, then it's to add some specificity to strengthen that.
So do we have the two sentences then?
So I think that the original sentences proposed by Commissioner Wooster was, the first one, general plan will protect the rights of property owners, and then second sentence, county government will respect and protect the private property rights of people in their efforts to maintain and develop productive resources.
Okay.
Except strike the word private,
Yes, no
Strike the
private.
word private and instead of and, do or.
maintain or develop.
Do we need to say in the county?
I don't think so.
No, but I think I need you to read it again because I
Yes.
got lost.
County government will respect and protect the property rights of people in their efforts to maintain or develop productive resources.
That's the second sentence,
That's the second sentence.
Lisa. The first one is just, the general plan will protect. Give me that, Peter.
The general plan will protect the rights of property owners.
Period, right.
All right, are we good?
Yeah.
Is there a motion?
Also, I'll move that as read.
Second?
Is that a clear enough motion?
It was. Well, we just had the two sentences written, was to me. Does anyone want to hear it again?
No, I just have a question of
Okay.
the people in the audience here. Did that address the need that you were just bringing up?
I think it's a bit redundant and probably not needed, but yes.
Okay. All right, I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. So that was probably one of the more difficult ones.
You think so?
Maybe.
No.
I like to hope so. Always look on the bright side.
Okay, the optimist.
What's that? I think, should we continue on for a little while?
Let's get to that. We can
Yeah.
get the next one done in 15 minutes.
Yeah, let's keep going. Okay. So, and just using because I actually liked the Planning Coalition sort of breakout of the guiding principles from the original 2008 working draft into topic areas. So I think it makes sense to maintain those, like property rights. So the next one on our list would be economic development.
Do you mind if I suggest one?
A guiding principle?
Yeah.
Sure.
I like the idea of my number one, that there be a guiding principle that talks about the role of the general plan. Does anybody think that it's superfluous or doesn't add anything? Does that not add value?
So are you saying a guiding principle under economic development?
No, it's a standalone.
Oh, to me, that really reads as like an introduction to the general plan, which I believe that we're going to have. I mean, to me, that sort of sets the tone about what it is and that, you know, what it's going to, what the reader can expect inside.
Yes, but again, we're looking for components here that are going to give us direction, going forward. The introduction to the general plan does not do that.
The vision statement's supposed to do that.
The guiding principles are supposed to do that, this being one of them. Offered as one of them.
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that as being a guiding principle.
Now, look, remember, we're going to be handing this to the board. We're going to be, this is what we think you should, you know, be looking at.
I think that the language that you suggested here would fit into the introduction, which is, that's next up on the agenda next week if we get through noise today. There may be a simple sentence that gets to the idea of this is that we need to remain flexible. And maybe that's the statement, is the general plan will remain flexible to address unforeseen circumstances.
Okay.
Or something along those lines. And then we can go into more detail because in the introduction, we have, the purpose of it. We talk about growth projections. We talk about property rights. There's a setting section. There's some discussion within the introduction that has sort of the broader picture. I think we could add some language in there similar to this, or we just pull this and plug it in there. I don't know that it quite fits a guiding principle statement, though.
What about the last sentence about the language, the style of writing? Do you agree that that is a principle that is, we've talked about it many times?
Yes.
Okay, then adding to that, what about adding the concept of general versus specific and flexibility over rigidity to this idea of plain language writing? Two separate sentences, of course, but doesn't that give us guidance in two respects? Language and style.
Works for me. It's up to the rest of the commission.
I'm not sure I'm following.
I just got lost because when Peter brought up that it would be great for next week's meeting with for an introduction, I think it plays a huge role there.
Yes, but the introduction is not a guiding principle, okay? It's the result of a guiding principle. So what this is attempting to do is to guide us for the future in how we look at the language of every element. And what this says is, let's make sure we're as general as possible versus inflexible and rigid, general rather than specific, flexible rather than rigid. So that's the essence of a guiding principle. It's a simple statement that gives quite a bit of guidance.
Through your research, did you find other counties that did a principle with the role of the general plan?
No.
You just thought that up on your own?
Amazing. Yeah, sometimes that happens.
So if I get this, you're just suggesting that we have a guiding principle that says basically that there's an understanding that the general plan has the potential to be, exerting great influence on the citizens of the county, and that it is our intent as sort of drafters of the general plan that we be, or that be written such a way that it's understandable, and also in a way that's, I guess I'm not sure.
True to its purpose. True to its purpose.
That it's general.
As a general plan, because I suspect that if you looked at general plans when they first came out as a requirement in the state of California, they were indeed general. But government being the way government is, it gets more and tighter and more specific. That's just the way government works. No offense, but that's the way it happens. So this statement that I've come up with attempts to sort of retract a little bit and make sure that our general plan is indeed general and therefore flexible, because we're supposed to be looking ahead 30 years. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about something that you're going to implement or do, a policy, that you're coming up with that now, and that's supposed to be good for another 25, 30 years. That's a pretty hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. And the more specific you get, the harder it is to do that. Mm-hmm. You're dreaming to, in many respects, to try to come up with specificity that's good for 30 years.
Yeah, I could support a statement like that.
I could support this statement. I like the part in favor flexibility and adaptability over rigidity. That was well written.
What do you know?
I'm impressed.
Just like I knew what I was doing.
So do you want to ask the public?
Yes, how about, did the public have some comment on addition of a guiding principle about the way the plan is written and interpreted?
Does everybody have in front of them at this point the email I sent?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, but it came in so late, I really haven't had time to study it.
We're going to go over it now.
You have 2 minutes.
Whoa!
Joke, Tom. It was a joke.
Chairman Lisa. Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to get to this until later in the day when we were actually discussing objectives, but
we'll still be here.
They're bringing up the point now, so it's important to go over. First, let me talk a little bit about flexibility. As Lisa talked about earlier, we found that there was a problem with the asphalt plant because guidelines were vague. And we also found that there was an advantage to permitting the generators because we had these bright line tests that the Air Pollution Control District can apply and just sort of ministerially approve generators for their air pollution mitigation. And so there are advantages to having bright line tests. Now, how do you work flexibility into a process that has bright line tests? You create flexibility. You say, well, we anticipate that we may need to provide certain exceptions to this specific guidelines, so we provide some possibility for variance. And we specify how much that is going to be so we don't swallow the rule. For example, if we had a bright line test for a level of service on roadways, but said we acknowledge that in perhaps 10% of the situations over the next 20 years, we may have to provide a variance for capacity on roadways, and we're going to track that so that the exceptions don't swallow the rule. That way we have the advantages of both bright line tests and flexibility. So if that's the kind of flexibility, I think we can find a place where we can meet that flexibility requirement that gets both parties what they're really looking for. Because as you know, investors coming into the county want to know, what can I do and how much is it going to cost me? And right now that's a very difficult challenge. Because if I were to ask you, Fawn McLaughlin, what's the sheriff impact mitigation fee for the county that fully mitigates the impacts of a development project to sheriff services? You'd have to say what every planning department staff has to say, we don't have one. if we were to ask you, what's the actual road impact mitigation fee you'd have to pay to fully mitigate your impacts on the regional roadway? You'd have to say, well, we have a regional impact mitigation fee, but we also know it doesn't fully mitigate the impacts. These are not the answers that the private sector needs. The private sector needs more clarity than that. So, and I recognize that as a planning director, the planning director will say, well, we'll get to that when we do the zoning ordinances. Don't worry about it. Well, that's what they said in 1996. We got a noise ordinance and we got an ag ordinance, and they were good ordinances. But a lot of the other stuff we never got. So what we're encouraging with regard to the general plan is to provide some additional clarity at this step of the game, so people who want to come in here and invest have some of that clarity. Now, with regard to, we did hear at the, we recognize the staff report indicated a reluctance to comprehensively include things like measurable objectives and quantified standards and implementation responsibilities, implementation timeframes, and implementation funding details to the plan. Those are things that you might call specificity. We also heard Supervisor Kearney on June 30th, and he said he would like that such detail be selectively and judiciously applied, not in every part of the plan, not in every implementation, not in every policy. Our suggestion is that the Planning Commission provides specificity to those policies and implementation measures it wishes to qualify as mitigation measures. What does he mean by that? Let me explain. After you all get done identifying the project description, the text of the general plan, goes to the board, they will bless that. The next step is there'll be an environmental review of that plan. That environmental review will identify the impacts of the plan's implementation. It also, as part of that environmental review, the county is obligated to adopt feasible mitigation measures to reduce potential significant impacts until there are no more measures or until the impact is reduced to a level of insignificance, whichever comes first. Now, so those mitigation measures are going to be those policies and implementation provisions in the general plan. For a policy or an implementation program to qualify as mitigation, it cannot be merely a vague goal. It must reflect a feasible means of solving the problem. Now, mitigation can take two forms. Mitigation can be implemented as part of the project, part of the plan, or it can be deferred until a later date. A good example of mitigation that's part of the plan is the objectives that we heard from the housing element earlier. Units for 10 low-income households will be developed over the next 5 years. So that provides specificity that gets implemented immediately. It creates a clear standard. Those are good things. Why is that a good thing? Because what if, let's say the first project that comes for the Board of Supervisors is it provides that 10 units of affordable housing. Then you can say, well, hey, we met our objective for the next 5 years, and if somebody complains about the next project because, well, that doesn't provide any affordable housing, you say, hey, we met our goal, we met our objective, we're done.
So we're not working on the elements right now.
No, but what I'm saying is,
we're working on is the principles.
right, but you're saying, you're proposing a principle that suggests that the general plan should be as general as possible. And I'm suggesting to you that there are circumstances where that's not going to be effective, because at some point in time, you want some of those policies and some of those implementation measures to qualify as impact mitigation.
And I think what we're saying, if you went through our umbrella and then every level of specificity, that we will get to that level of specificity, but I think it is appropriate to have a guiding principle that says it's going to be readable by
Yes, but this says as general as possible rather than specific.
Can you read the whole sentence? The whole sentence? Starting at the beginning?
Where practical?
Where practical. How is that a bad thing?
What I'm trying to say is I want to make it clear to the Planning Commission what is going to be practical.
Okay, that's later. Later on, when we talk about the elements and the ingredients of those elements, we can decide what's practical or impractical in terms of general versus specific. We don't have to write that into the guiding principle.
What I want you to understand at this point in time is that there is, under no circumstances should the planning commissioners be led to believe that the county will achieve a valid general plan without making commitments to implement feasible mitigation to mitigate the impacts of the general.
How does that make that sentence not applicable?
Because at some point, someone's going to look at a policy,
And then
and they're going to have to decide whether it qualifies as mitigation.
And at that point, we will be dealing with, we're going to have 1,000 of these things.
And so what I'm suggesting is you have two choices. One choice is we could move through this process, move through the elements, not add any specificity now, and even put in a policy, a guiding principle that says we don't like specificity.
But Tom, I think you're a little horse before the cart, or cart before the horse, or whatever. We're not, we're still on the guiding principles. We're not talking about the level of specificity, nor are we discussing should we have measurable objectives or implementation measures in the design and format of this general plan. We haven't even gotten there yet.
Well, when I see something that says as a guiding principle will be as general as possible rather than specific, it makes me concerned that we might not pay, as Lisa suggested, our goal is to do a valid general plan, follow the law. And I want to make sure it's clear that following the law will require us to include specificity in the general plan.
You keep leaving out the key phrase, where practical.
And I'm trying to make sure we understand what that means.
Well, you can't understand what it means if you keep leaving it out of the sentence.
We haven't even heard of the full sentence yet back here.
What I'm trying to get at is as I want to make it clear, I want the Planning Commission to recognize that when you say this, what it really means is, what I'm trying to explain here, is that there will be specificity. And I think this is suggesting that the goal is and should be as general as possible. And I'm not sure that's necessarily in one respect, it may not be consistent with the law. In another respect, it may not be consistent with the general welfare of the county. Because as we've seen, where we can provide people with some specificity, it enhances the effectiveness of the marketplace. It facilitates project approvals.
I don't think anybody argues with
Well,
that.
this is a general plan, not a specific plan. And we're doing guiding principles right now. We're not working on the elements. When we're inside of the elements and going through those, that's what, when you're speaking to, will play a huge role.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is I don't think that this guiding principle about being as general as possible rather than specific is heading us in the right direction.
Can you change that verbiage to make it more flexible?
Yeah, something. I mean, well, I'm just saying
That sentence is perfect.
Could you please let us know what the sentence
If we
is?
come to a point where you
Yes.
say, it's not practical here?
Do you
okay,
have
it's
a
not
copy of David Tuno's?
I do, and last I heard,
Okay.
we were on the last sentence
So-
of the first part, but that doesn't mention anything about specific. We're on the middle
So-
sentence? Okay.
So where practical, it's on the third line, almost to the end.
Okay, and that was going to be after the being understandable, which was coming from the last line, is that what I heard?
A stronger version of that would read, wherever possible, okay? This is mild language, where practical. It will be as general as possible rather than specific.
Okay, excuse me, so your principle is, so where practical, it will be as general as possible rather than specific, in favor of flexibility and adaptability over rigidity.
Right. That's
But
the
wasn't
heart
there
of
something
that
that,
statement.
wasn't there a part of that that was also before that? It will be written in a style understandable to the
After,
public. I know, but it was that at the beginning of your
Yeah,
statement.
we're just trying to put those
Okay.
two concepts together into
Okay,
one.
we didn't get that back here. And I also want to agree with Tom, we're not real wild about the general and flexible direction because developers need specifics and clarity to develop in the county. That flexibility leads to inconsistency. They want consistency. So if you can work flexibility in there somehow without making that the overarching principle, because developers need consistency and specifics to know how to develop here. That's why they can't develop in Valley Springs. Things are all messed up. There's no current plan. There's no specifics. It's too flexible. Everything that comes before them is a battle.
I think that level of specificity comes out of the zoning code, the design standards, those kinds of implementation things.
And that was the confusion with the asphalt plan. It wasn't the general plan, it was the code.
Right, right. Well, it's correct. That's
It's
why.
right. You're right.
And it's difficult to build because people protest.
If it's correct,
And
Peter?
But I'm
if
really
it's correct,
glad to
Peter,
hear my Valley Springs come out in favor of what developers need in this county.
For 10 years, we've been trying to get rules and guidelines working.
Well, look at this, we're all working together. And I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
great.
Peter, if it's correct that that specificity is going to be in the zoning ordinance, someone, either this commissioner or the supervisors, and hopefully with your recommendation, needs to specify a time specific when those zoning ordinances are going to be developed. Because if you sit back and say, we'll develop those, and we'll be in the same position we are in the 1996 plan. There's a whole bunch of ordinances were supposed to be developed, didn't get developed, and this bogs up the process. So I'm suggesting that we, as you've already done in several places, we're going to go to the noise ordinance. What are we going to see? We're going to see bright line tests. They're going to help people meet those requirements. That's a good thing. And so I think that the general plan is a good place for those kind of bright line tests. And I think that's the direction we should be going. So that's...
If I may, with the chair's permission, the basic concept of flexibility versus general versus flexible, to me is self-evident whenever you have a plan that looks forward 30 years. The more specific you make it, the easier it is to become obsolete overnight and useless to you. All the work goes for nothing. If it's general and flexible, then as conditions change over time, over the decades that this is supposed to look forward into, you can adapt to it. It still works. It's like the 10 Commandments. They still work because they are general. They are overarching. Okay? They still work.
I think
the Constitution, it still works.
That's not the dichotomy we're talking about. We're talking about general versus specific, not general versus flexible. As I suggested, there are ways to work flexibility into bright line tests, and I think we've suggested those and we support those. Also, let's remember, this is a plan that by law can be amended 4 times a year. So it has built into it a component of flexibility. So if something doesn't work or if circumstances changes, the board can and the Planning Commission can recommend to the board to make those kind of changes.
That's why I kind of think the word works. You're trying to make us say we have to be specific, and we can't. We have to be flexible because, as you stated earlier, we do have some ordinances that have issues that need corrections. If we allow the flexibility into this plan, we can, that 4 times a year, find the ordinance that may have some faults, get them corrected. So I don't understand, I'm not saying I don't understand what you're saying. I'm saying I'm not comprehending the way you want this to be read that provides the flexibility that we're going to need to correct ordinances as they come up with an issue. So
The question was versus specific versus general.
Okay.
And what we're talking about is providing more specificity in the general plan gets us where we need to go.
How would you change that word to make it work for you?
No, I wouldn't, this wouldn't be a guiding principle that, this wouldn't be a guiding principle that we would recommend.
About the understandable language?
No, about the general as possible rather than specific, and we wouldn't have that,
Wasn't it all rolled up into one? And the only thing and then wasn't it all one, or was it 2? Wasn't the understandable language with the general as well as the specific?
It's a separate sentence, but it's in the same section.
And I guess I understand what you're saying, but you're also, it's like if we had a statement like that, there's an automatic default to no specificity. That's kind of what I'm hearing, is that if we had a guiding principle like this, it's an automatic default that, nope, no specificity anywhere here in this general plan. Is that how that's how you interpret it?
Whenever anything that's right now, for example, the noise table in the noise ordinance, in the noise element. Well, that's very specific. Well, we have to get rid of that because it's not specificity. The road standards and the circulation element. Well, that's pretty specific. I don't think we can follow this guiding principle.
In other words, the noise ordinance table is an example where it's not practical to not be specific.
Is it? I don't know.
Well, you just said it was. You just said it belongs in there
My argument is
because
that
when it comes to noise, you have to measure it.
My argument would be that that those are specificity, that's a level of specificity. that-
I agree with you 100%, and that's why that would be an example where it's not practical to be general versus specific. You have to be specific. Just like it says here.
So what Commissioner Tuno was saying is that it's not an automatic default. And at least in my mind, it's not an automatic default either. That there is room to be, if you come up against something that is, has changed, untenable, whatever, that it allows some, I guess, interpretation. But I totally agree with the comments about development and the need for clear and consistent language, clear and consistent guidelines. I'm an economic development consultant. I understand the importance of and working with businesses and all they want to know is just tell me the rules.
What can I do and how much does it cost me?
That's right. And when can I expect it to be done? Reducing that uncertainty is the best incentive a community can provide.
And so just so you're aware, what you're going to be facing as you move through this general plan is that we talked about the two types of mitigation. One is the one that gets implemented right away because it's specific and has a bright line test. Then we talked about the other kind that's deferred, going to be developed over time. If you look at the 2014 draft, it includes deferred mitigation proposals related to design guidelines, mitigation guidelines for natural resource impacts, a habitat conservation plan, an oak woodland management plan, climate change reduction measures, a parks and recreation plan, uniform defensible space standards, emergency evacuation.
Tom, I think we get the point there. I do, that deferral is not a appropriate mitigation.
It's going to be a problem.
Yes.
And so my feeling is that we need to move more towards specificity regarding these things rather than less specificity. When I look at the 2014 draft, I don't see a general plan that's overweighted with specificity and undersupplied with generality. I see a plan that's overweighted with generality and undersupplied with specificity.
Thank you.
Can I suggest that we look at what David's done here under role of the general plan? I do have an issue with the last sentence of the first paragraph.
So do I.
It says where the county board of supervisors discovers a component of the general plan does not adhere to these concepts on an ongoing basis, it will undertake
kind
to
of an
correct it.
implementation
The same
measure.
thing that you made comments, so I've X'd that one out.
Other than that, I think it's a good idea.
I have to read it one more time.
So what I heard was there are two sentences out of that first component of Mr. Tuno's recommendation, and
One.
Well,
The final sentence of the first paragraph.
Starting with where the county board of
well,
supervisors.
I guess what I was thinking that there would be
Two of them?
two sentences out of this. Where practical, the general plan will be as general as possible rather than specific, and favor flexibility and adaptability over rigidity. A sentence. Second sentence is the separate one, as a document that guides the county's future and exerts great influence on the lives of its citizens. The general plan shall be written in a style that is understandable to the public.
Yeah, and if you start with the sentence where practical, all you miss, if it's valuable, is the purpose for being general as where possible rather than specific because of the nature of the future and et cetera, et cetera. You miss that sort of guiding principle to the statement. Mm-hmm. One is the principle and one is the what do you do about it. Okay, so I think the first three sentences have value in that sense, but they're not absolutely necessary because the fourth sentence, the fourth sentence gives you what you need. It's just that the first three tell you why that's important.
Right.
The commission can voice their opinion on that. I'd like to see it in there, but I won't lose any sleep if it's not.
What's not in there? Which part?
Oh, just the first three sentences. You can start with where practical, it will be general, et cetera, et cetera. But the first three sentences tell you why that's an important point to make.
I really feel like this is for the introduction more than it is a principle. Do you agree?
Certainly those first three sentences could be incorporated into the introduction.
I mean, the first three sentences are great, and I think that they should be incorporated into as a part of the introduction, but...
Okay, why don't we try this? If I don't mean to cut you off, Lisa.
No, I read it to us.
Take Peter's version, which starts with sentence 4.
So is where practical? Is that sentence 4?
Yeah, it starts with where practical,
Okay.
since there's no so anymore. It adds the last sentence of that section, and then we circle the other three sentences, and we stick them into the introduction if we want to do that.
Okay, so you want let me just so that I'm clear, because I'm confused right now. You want a guiding principle that says, where practical, it will be as general as possible rather than specific and favor flexibility and adaptability over rigidity.
Yeah, only
Period.
we don't need the pronoun, now we have to have the full word, general plan, instead of the word it. You follow me, Peter?
Yeah. So practical or appropriate?
I don't think it really makes a substantive difference. I bet if you looked up in a thesaurus, you're going to find those two words linked together.
I don't like the word over rigidity in there. Would you be in favor of flexibility and adaptability, period?
Yeah. Let's keep it all positive.
Okay. So it would just be that one sentence that you want as a guiding principle under the role of the general plan.
Well,
Correct.
and then the understandable one.
If the chair will allow, it will read this way. First sentence, where practical, or in Ms. McLaughlin's version, appropriate. The general plan will be as general as possible rather than specific and favor flexibility and adaptability.
And then also,
Okay, but
that's
grammatically
one.
that's kind of bad then, because you take the word out and make favor into a gerund, favoring flexibility and adaptability. Can you read my scratchings?
I got it.
You want me to read it again?
No, I think I've got, well, yeah, go ahead and read it again. Never hurts.
Let me see if I get it right this time. Where practical, the general plan will be as general as possible, comma, rather than specific, comma, favoring flexibility and adaptability.
Okay, got it.
Period. New sentence. As a document that guides the county's future and exerts great influence on the lives of the citizens, comma, it is to be written in a style that is understandable to the public, period. End of guiding principle.
You just had to add another one, like we didn't have enough to work on already, huh? So is there a discussion on, more discussion, or? No? Is there, yeah, Lisa?
Okay, so we're talking about saving the upper portion of this for the introduction.
Right.
I didn't know he was going to add this last sentence, so I need to process that thought for 1 second.
About
As a document that guides the county's future and exerts great influence on the lives of the citizens, it is to be written in a style that is understandable to the public. And what element would that principle fall under?
Everywhere, all the whole text, the whole writing of it. It's not written in legalese, it's not written in planningese, it's written in English at a level that people could pick it up and understand what's being said.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
And we just have to do our best to do that. I mean,
That's
it's
right.
not going to be a perfect
That's right.
world on
But
that.
because there's a lot of technical terms, and the reality is that general plan is really not all that general anymore, as you alluded to. It's just not.
Right. So,
Hey, I'll make the motion to accept his.
Or to add that,
Add the role of the general plan as he read it, or do you want me to read it again?
no, I think we got it.
We got it.
Okay.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, motion carries.
No?
why not? Why don't you propose that?
Do you want to take a break now, keep going? It's up to you
Oh,
guys.
gosh.
Lunch? All right, let's give them that.
Okay. So we'll be back here at,
So before we adjourn, a question. Do you think we're going to get to the noise element
No.
today?
I don't know, I think we
Actually,
will.
we're moving quicker than I thought.
And I think we've covered a
So I
lot.
need to know when to call Amy to make sure that
I'm
the
ever
consultant's
hopeful.
here
Are
to,
you going to order dinner for us? Because if you are, we'll stay.
no.
I think, I don't know, I think I have hopes that we're going to get to the
Okay,
noise
we'll
element.
plan on that,
let's-
and hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah, let's
Think
be,
positive.
yeah, exactly. So with that, can we come back at 1? Would that be too quick for you guys?
A little too quick.
Too quick?
1:15.
1:15?
Okay, 1:15. See you back here promptly. We are adjourned till 1:15.